Deep Fried Thoughts, it's the best podcast. Deep Fried Thoughts. Don't worry, we're working on a better intro. All right, dude, welcome. Welcome to the podcast, dude.
I made it.
Yeah, you did.
I wanted to be on this. Do you know that?
No, I did not know that.
I was always like, I'm not going to ask because, like, what happens if I'm like, hey, man, can I be on your podcast? And you're like, I'm like kind of like booked up right now, but maybe someday we'll fit you in.
So it's funny because a lot of people do ask.
Yeah.
And I've never had anybody that I flat out don't want on.
Yeah.
But my whole thing is like, if I didn't think of you first, you got to give me a reason you want to be on. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you got to tell me, like, what do you want to come on and talk about? And if it's something I'm interested in, you know, then let's do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've yet to have that awkward conversation with somebody I know. Although, you know, I did have a guy who was semi-internet famous back in the day reach out and wanted to come on. Yeah, he went viral for this song, My Corvette, red Corvette, I don't know. I tried to look him up, and all I could find is that the guy...
Did he say he was semi-famous, or...?
No, he told me who he was, and it was his real account.
Okay.
I found out, and he had just come out. He just did like a song with Migos.
Okay.
And he wanted to like promote the song and things. And I went online, and the song apparently got like trashed. Like, his vocals in the Migos got trashed. And I was like, I don't know if I really like, if this is the place you want to come and like do damage control for like a couple hundred people.
I need the biggest audience I can find to explain what happened.
I just didn't know the guy. And then the more research I did, he had like this cult following on the internet from like these high schoolers at the time. And they all were looking, most of the forums I found about him were all like, does anybody have this song? Because he goes to like crazy lengths to remove and strike down anybody that posts it.
Okay.
And from what I can gather, it's because he was trying to become a more serious like rapper. Mm-hmm. And I guess you can hire famous rappers to like
boost your
to rap on a track.
Yeah.
I mean, and apparently the Migos like kind of do it for a ton of people. Like, I mean, for cost.
Yeah.
So it seems like he just had some money from, saved up or maybe from his little bit of fame and was just like, I'm putting everything I got into this Migos song. It's going to be like the hottest thing ever. And it comes out and people are just like not feeling it.
Put it all in one basket and just blew up.
Yeah, I feel bad. I'm just trashing this guy for a while and I really don't even know him.
Hopefully he's not still a listener, but if he is.
Sorry, but I honestly,
There's nothing to say.
I flat out was like, I don't want to close the door on him. I was like, well, if you're ever in the area, I was like, I'm not doing anything like over Zoom or anything. I might do one. I'm trying to work on that now. I really just have to come to terms with doing it for somebody that I can't get out here.
Yeah.
That'll be sometime probably before the summer. Anyway, a little sneak peek. But yeah, I told him like, if you ever in the area, hit me up. And I kind of left it at that.
Yeah.
I didn't say come out here for this, or anything like that, but...
No hard plans.
No hard plans. Anyway. What's new with you, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I just built a trampoline for the whole day, so...
Nice. How was those last few springs?
Dude, so that was, like, when I built it, it was, like, everything's like, this is a 2-person exercise. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, it's just me today, so let's go for it. And, like, I would set up, like, the frame. I would set up, like, 3 sections, and I was like, I'm getting pretty good at building things. And I look back and it had all fallen over. The springs, I figured it out. It ended up not being as bad as I thought. Like, I thought I'd be out there till, like, midnight, but we got it done. There was a couple things that needed some...
This was today you got this done?
Yeah,
nice.
Got it done.
Yeah, I'm always terrified of springs and things like that hit me. I got hit in the face with a bungee cord once, and that was enough for me. Yeah, like right in the eye.
There was a guy that worked at CJ, Chris, and he had an air brake blow up in his face in high school. And he said he had like a couple, it was like fake teeth on one side. Mm-hmm. And he says like it blew up. I forget what he was doing because I'm like not well versed in that at all. But he like came to walking through the parking lot, just like gushing blood, like people running over to him being like, are you all right? He was working with his dad's logging company, but...
So the air brake, I'm trying to think of what would blow on an air brake. Because I know it's like a lot of compact air and like the little container, but...
If I start trying to explain it, I'm just
do you know if the container blew?
he did something wrong. I was talking to my dad about it. He was like, "Oh yeah, you never do that." But I don't remember any of the words or what any of the parts are.
I'd imagine it's similar to like a tire. I'm just thinking of tires exploding.
Yeah.
Which I've had, like when I was on the trash truck one time, we heard one blow and it sounded like a gunshot. Like it rung through Thornberry. It was just
Really?
like, whoa. Yeah. It was incredibly loud.
I bet with those.
But the two other times actually just remind me of, one, I was riding a motorcycle down 95. I was living in Jersey at the time. Mm-hmm. I was just getting close to my exit, and I used to like to get like to where my bumper was almost touching the tailgate of semi trucks, just because I don't know. I
That's
just like
where you were in life.
there's this weird yeah. I don't even care what happens.
Let's see.
I'm just there for the thrill. No, it was definitely dumb and stupid, and I'd get a rush from it, but it was this weird thing that there was this little pocket, if you get close enough, where everything goes silent. There's no wind. And you got to be careful because right when you enter that, your throttle goes up a little bit because there's zero resistance.
Closer.
Yeah, and
It's a
like
slingshot from Talladega Nights.
tiny bit.
That.
Yeah. Right. It's like a tiny bit. It's not much, but it's enough that you got to be careful at that speed.
Yeah.
I'm doing, 80 or 70 miles an hour, like 2 inches from the back of a truck.
That's wild.
So I'm doing that, and I'm getting ready to like pull. It was like the moment I was getting ready to pull over, like to get towards my exit, his tire exploded and shot rubber and hit me in the helmet.
For
Dude,
real?
that could have killed me. Yeah, I've watched videos since, like to see like what that has the power of doing. The fact that I ran over a couple pieces and like bounced around a little bit, and then thank God I was wearing a helmet because it was in Jersey. I didn't wear helmets at the time.
Knock you unconscious.
It
or like
smacked my head so hard, dude. Like just threw my helmet, my head over my shoulder. But it was like a little piece. But it felt like I got hit. I somehow like survived. Yeah, kept it on there, and we winded up pulling over together. And I'm panicking and like tears and shaking, and I'm like not crying, but like like the adrenaline, everything's running through my body. And he comes around the back, and I'm like having a panic attack right at the back of his truck. He's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "You didn't see what happened?" He goes, "I blew a tire." I was like, "Yeah, it hit me in the face." Of course, he didn't see me.
Oh my gosh.
There was that, and then I was doing I think I might have told this on here, so sorry if I have. Ali and I, my buddy, were doing a cross-country road trip, and we're out in like Kansas, right? Like nothing but fields and whatever, and my car broke down. And we're just sitting there waiting for a tow truck, and I think it was like the alternator went. Anyway, the battery died. So as we're waiting, a cop pulls up behind us to see what's going on, and we had gotten pulled over a ton of times, and Ali already thinks that everybody is out to get him because he's black.
Yeah.
And that whole trip, we kept getting pulled over like for nothing. And I was like, I'm having a harder and harder time arguing with you right now. So here we are getting pulled over, and we're making jokes in the car. Well, the officer comes up along the passenger side off the road, and I could see him. He's got his hand on his hip, and he's approaching Ali's side, and we hear what we thought was a gunshot, like blow.
Yeah.
We duck and put our hands over our heads, and we're ducking down, and we're looking, and he's got his gun like half out, and he's just looking around, and we're like, "Are you okay?" Like we yell out the window, like, "What was that?" He goes, "I think your tire just exploded." It exploded the second he was walking past it. What are the odds? Dude, what? I just think back, like, what if he shot?
How many times does something like that happen?
Never. That would be the moment that, the guy would pull out and just open fire, and we'd be like, I really don't know how to argue against what he did.
Yeah. Dude,
Terrifying, man.
One time I was working with, I guess I was in college, and I was following Carl to go drill somewhere, and the pin fell out of the tabletop of the rig on 202. And like I was behind it and I was watching it. So like I probably told you this before, but the thing fell, hit the ground, bounced out of the lane that we were in, and I thought it was going through like the windshield of this Civic that was like to the left of me because we were in the right lane. It was in the middle.
It was just the pin?
Yeah, just the pin. But I mean, this pin's still like 3 pounds probably. Yeah. And it dropped under, and like you could see it like dribble under their car. And they but I was like, oh my gosh, I thought that was like going through a windshield and killing someone. And it was just someone hadn't put the little keeper pin like in the bottom of it when we had shut it the last time.
Yeah, dude, that stuff is crazy. I was riding, another time I was riding a motorcycle. I just gotten these Python pipes put on, like straight pipes put on my bike. And Adam was behind me on his R1, and we were flying through like splitting lanes on, I think probably on 295. And we're flying, and next thing I know, I look back, and Adam's like far behind me, and I didn't realize what was going on. My baffle, they just installed these pipes. The baffle didn't have one of the lock screws,
Just worked its
shook
way
it,
off.
worked its way out, hit the ground and bounced. I think it went over Adam while he was riding, or he dodged it or something. But that's a huge piece of steel, like
Dude,
coming
yeah,
at you.
Take you out.
But he dodged it somehow, dude. Yeah, lucky.
Everything you just said, Python, pipes, and baffle, those literally, like, they appear in my head as just words.
It was just the type of exhaust. This is the exhaust. Yeah, I guess it wasn't Vance and Hines. I should just say non-Vance and Hines pipes for all the Harley guys.
There you go.
It's like all they care about. They do sound good.
Van Hines?
I think it's Vance and Hines. Vance and Hines.
No idea.
Whatever.
That's just words to me.
It's just exhaust. They sound good.
Yeah. It makes it loud.
Yeah. Now pipes save lives, dude.
That's true.
Yeah.
Dude, they aggravate me.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
What, bikes?
Yeah.
What, like riding around with them? Have you ever ridden?
Not really. I haven't ridden a dirt bike since I was like 10.
Oh, man. Two-wheel virgin in the studio.
Stick to quads
Well,
that are automatic transmission.
If you want to ride Cupcake one morning, or even tomorrow to church, we can ride Cupcake.
I'll drive the kids here and ride with you.
We'll just knock the bottle away.
Dude, that's the last time I rode. It was with my friend. He was riding his bike, and I rode to wherever we were riding with his dad, and I was like supposed to be hugging him. I was like, no way. I literally held the back of his shirts with my fingers and just squeezed as tight as I could with my legs. I was like, I'm not hugging this guy from behind. It's just not happening.
Dude, I've been trying to find this photo. Probably like 15 years ago. I was riding through South Philly something happened. I had to get a ride, and I was with my buddy Eric, and I was riding the back of his bike. Now, I'm a big guy. He's tall, and this bike was not built for two. I'm like hanging off the back, and I just know how close the tire is. And I'm holding him, and we're hitting bumps going down Columbus. It's just like potholes. I'm bouncing around.
Just waiting for it to jump up and rip your butt off.
My only reaction was to hug him like as tight as I could, and I'm hysterical laughing. So anyway, years later, the photo resurfaces and we start getting tagged in it or something.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I guess somebody took a photo of us and it started getting like passed around this like big community or whatever in Philly.
Yeah.
And we were just getting made fun of for years and had no idea until the photo made it to us. And then we started backtracking and finally I'm like, oh, we've been like, semi-memed. But the picture was so goofy, man. We just looked like we were absolutely in love.
just laughing.
Yeah. It was so good. That's bikes are fun. I definitely there's a lot of dickheads out there that cause a lot of people to hate bikes.
Yeah.
And just being extra loud, but honestly, when I'm on a bike, I don't care. I don't care about anybody else in the car.
Dude, they gotta be fun. When we were out camping with Adam, you guys went off on dirt bikes and I definitely was like, man, maybe one day I'll learn how to.
We got extra bikes.
I'll have to try it sometime. Yeah. Just one that's like, it's okay if you destroy it.
That's literally like what I have. Yeah, I have like a spare for that.
You were like, do you want to ride? And I was like, I don't know how to do manual. And you were like, okay, well, maybe next time. Just drove off.
Yeah, that was the KTM I think I had.
Yeah, that was not the one
not
for
today.
me to learn on. I had fun on that quad though, but
oh yeah, dude, quads scare me.
Yeah,
you go to turn, they just flip. I'm like, I don't know how to. I don't have enough experience on them.
Yeah.
So hopping on one and trying to ride the same way and the same speeds, I'm just like everything wants to flip over and kill me.
Yeah, because you have so much control with a dirt bike, right?
Yeah. I throw my feet down. I can distribute my weight. I'm sure there's the same thing for quads. I just don't know how to do it. And I get on and they constantly are going up on two wheels and it's terrifying. Also, anytime I've tried to get air on a quad, it hurts so bad landing, which is also probably because the suspension is not made for somebody my size.
Dude, I was launching on that one, and then I was like, "This is yours, Adam?" And they're like, "No, it's the Prangs." And I was like, "I'm done. The last thing I'm doing is breaking somebody's quad, but I'm not. So they're not here."
Bob from work, that's Brandon's uncle. Anyway, he was telling me where Brandon's father lives. Right? I think it's his dad. Lives across the street and 2 houses down, or his grandmom's house. Anyway, that's where the quad is.
Wait, from Adam?
From Brandon.
Yeah. So on the same street.
I've never been there. I just knew generally where he was. Mm-hmm. And I was supposed to get off work around 4:30 and go over and meet them and pick it up. Long story short, I'm there at 8 o'clock at night. it's pitch black, and I'm walking around through these people's yards with a
Hello?
flashlight, trying to find somebody that had a garage that I can get into.
Yeah.
So I'm just checking
I'm just
garages.
trying to find a garage I could get
And the
into.
flashlight's so bright. I'm like so obvious. And then I finally find it. I'm like, this looks terrible. Because now I found a garage. I opened it up and now I'm just pushing a
breaking
quad
it
out
under.
quietly. And I know towards my truck around the corner.
So it's like, what are you doing? You're like, I'm just not trying to wake the neighbors.
Well, I think it was, his dad did wind up showing up
Yeah.
and hollered out. He thought it was Adam, but which was good because I didn't get, he didn't want to meet Adam with a gun. And they knew I was coming. I was more worried about a neighbor seeing me and being
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Or the
Neighborhood
police just
watch.
pulling up.
Yeah.
Oh, that is like the worst. It's so sugary. It's gonna be the stickiest table. So we're drinking Sazeracs.
I'm
Is
drinking
how
iced
this
tea.
come out? What do you think?
I think it's good, man.
Yeah, it's a little different because like I didn't. There's some prep and finesse when you're making it, to drink. And this one I kind of had to mix everything in instead of like anything after. There's no presentation.
I think it's got a little more bite than the last time you made it, but
I did that on purpose. That's the only thing I did on purpose.
That's the
Because I
only-
thought I put too much
You
sugar.
nailed it.
I was like, I can't remember how much of the like simple syrup I put in. So I was like, do another 2 shots of whiskey in there.
make sure you're good. Nah, it's good. I like it.
Good. It worked out. If we do finish that or you want something else too, I got this. I haven't tried it yet. Old Forester 1910 bourbon. I have the 1920 upstairs too, which is a little stronger. Okay. And I keep getting made fun of talking about, my buddy who recommended it. I want to put like, you ever see like the little droppers?
Yeah.
I think that's completely acceptable. Okay.
What do you do with it though?
You put like a couple drops of water and it helps like open it up a little bit and kind of, all right. It also weakens it. So it doesn't hurt my
so
throat.
emasculating.
I know.
Well, before I have this,
I enjoy it more. It's like, well, I'm buying it to enjoy it.
it does taste different.
Well, yeah, big difference. Like 2 drops into like a nice sized glass is
Yeah.
enough to completely change it, change the smell, the notes, everything, like the taste.
The notes.
And the burn is really what I care about. It doesn't burn as much.
Dude, yeah.
Because I'll take it. I'll be like, ooh. I was like, I got the agita.
I always talk about that about Chris. It's like, I don't need to prove myself. Like
That's my thing.
I
Yeah,
like,
I'm like,
I
I'm
like
just-
when drinks taste good. Like,
Yeah.
like normal good. Not like, I'm really tough, so this fire tastes good. Like
Yeah.
I like a drink that tastes good. Like it's good.
But after having a couple sips and now I'm like used to it.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't bother me at all to jump
you're
in.
ready for it.
Yeah, and which was his point. Is like his thing was like, this is a special bourbon, and they tested this out at all different stages of its life, and the people who know best, the people who like this is their craft and this is their baby,
Yeah.
they tasted this one and said this is the best it could be. We're gonna market this out. You
And
go
now
out
you're
and buy
coming
it,
here with your
and you're
dropper.
like, hold on a second, this could use a little dabs of water.
Needs a little bit of tap water from Brookhaven.
Actually, the reason I found that out is I was going to wash. I had a couple glasses, and I go to wash them, and a little bit of water got in one glass. I was like, oh, there's still some in there. So I was like, well, I'm not going to waste it, even though I had little bit of water in there. I drank it. I was like, that was amazing.
Yeah,
So then I was sold on the dropper, but before I bought one, I got shamed.
dude. No,
It's
don't
done
be
now.
shamed.
Well, then
It's all about enjoyment.
this one should be a lot smoother.
Should be.
We'll see.
All right.
So, dude, you came here during an interesting week. Seemingly a lot going on in the news. I don't know how much you've been following. Have you been following any of the stuff with the banks?
Ever since you said, I want to talk about this.
Did I tell you about the banks?
You were like, I would like to talk about SVB Bank, and I was like, all right, it's time for me to
gotcha.
know more than be like, sounds like China.
Dude, there's a lot. Like I went on, I've been busy the last couple days, and like I went on the news today, just looking to see what's happening, and now it's like something leaked where they're getting ready to indict and arrest Trump on Tuesday.
Yeah,
And I was like,
I wanted
all
to
right.
look into that.
I thought, all right, this is BS, and I kept going through, and then more accounts were doing it, and I was like, wait a minute, this is like a legit news
he
account.
said
Yeah.
he's the one it came from, right?
Yeah, well now they want to meet with him ahead of time, ahead of indictment.
Is
the way
it
the
January
way I read
6th or is it tax fraud?
I don't know.
Because I thought
don't
the
know if
tax
that's
stuff
out.
came out and it was like, there was nothing.
They don't need anything to go after this man. Like they really don't. It's just like love him or hate him. Or if you're listening, if you hate the man, like if you can't admit that they're just blindly going after him out of pure hatred, then you're lost to the cult.
Yeah.
Like, and if you think that he never did a thing bad in your life, you're also blind to the cult, man. He's
Yeah,
like,
that was, you couldn't be like, I remember like Devin and I would be like, all right, like we voted for him, but like, I don't love the guy. And like, depending on who you say that to, they'd be like, no, you should love him. And you're like, wait, why? Like, If he was anybody else other than the U.S. president, you wouldn't be like, he's a role model. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't be like, I hope my kid aspires to be like him. But it's like, you just couldn't have like the like, well, this is who I picked like out of the options like stance.
I think it's just odd though, because I don't know when this switched, because it definitely wasn't always like this, but the president was never supposed to have a ton of power. It was really supposed to be Congress had like a large amount of power. Now it seems like the president is the end all be all.
Yeah.
The buck stops with him, and it's like he's the most powerful man in the world. It's like, you really shouldn't be. He should be. Someone actually put it like this, and they were talking about George Washington becoming the first president, and saying that the reason they put him in that role is because he was an old man and he had done so much that he was more out there to like promote American, patriotism, and to go out and tour and speech and help, push different things and help, kind of rile the crowds.
Yeah.
And I don't know how true that is, but it was a good point about it. Like, it was more of like an honorary position, right?
I don't know if there's any validity to what I just said, but I like the way it sounds.
Well, no, I mean, who knows? Because you hear so many different things. It's like, I used to just hear something and be like, oh, that's true. But now the internet tells me something. They can show me photos and videos, and I'm like, oh, I'll let that, marinate a little bit.
See what happens.
It's like, no, I just watched, somebody just punched somebody else in the face. It's like, I don't know if he even made contact. Like, do you have another angle? It's like, the man's bleeding on the floor. He flew like 3 feet. I'm like, was there a rope behind him? Like, is it tied to his waist? Because I just don't buy anything anymore. And dude, AI is getting insane. Did you hear that there was I know I'm jumping all over the place. We will get back to this stuff. But I don't know if you've been following with AI. I'm like obsessed with it. So you can manipulate or copy somebody's voice now with just a few seconds of speech.
Yeah.
And pretty soon you'll just be able to have like a small clip of them talking for like 10 seconds and be able to have it.
Yeah.
And then you can also do it with video. So you can like manipulate a lot of things. They had some college had gotten the dean of the college, and they released a video of him like spouting out all these racial slurs, and it looked legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like they were trying to get him fired. I'm like, why would you do that to somebody? Like, that's horrible.
Dude, I have not seen that, but I've watched Adam's been forwarding me the Dungeons and Dragons, Shapiro, Biden, and
That's
Trump.
so good.
And I've been tired watching those.
Dude, those are being done on like a free app.
Yeah, like no effort.
It's a free app. There's no effort at all, and those videos are great. And then you see somebody putting like a moderate amount of effort, and they look amazing, and then who knows what's down the line. Like,
I mean, it's weird because, like, the thing is, like, who's going to know what truth is, right? Like, eventually, like, but I feel like it's kind of a progression of, like, what's always been, right? Like, right now, like, you read the news, and depending on what outlet it's coming from, you don't know, like, if you believe the truth or if you assume it's a lie.
But now they're going to back it up with
like
evidence. Like, now the lie could be backed up with video footage.
But I wonder, like, like, this is where, like, my lack of understanding, like, I don't know how. I'm not a coder. I'm not a programmer. I don't, like, make deep fake AI videos. But I almost wonder if there's, like, a way to also, like, check, like, the source code or something along the lines of, like, I feel like it's just going to become, like, a new,
It's going to be a rat race.
Process.
It's going to be a race against, either one.
Yeah.
They're going to find a way to get around that, and then they're going to find a way, and, it's the same thing with, like, jailbreaking phones and things.
But, like, imagine in, like, the 1700s or, like, before there was even, like, the telegram, someone, like, you could get fake letters, right? Like, you could get, like, hey, guess what this guy wrote? And you'd be like, is it true? Is it not true? I have no idea. That? And then, like,
the Hateful Eight. Do you remember the fake letter from Lincoln?
I never watched that movie.
Oh, I just ruined, like, I think it's one of the best scenes.
Is it good?
Yeah. Well, they, what is his name? Snakes on a Plane. What is his name?
Oh, Samuel L.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with all actors nowadays, but Samuel L. Jackson plays this guy who was like somebody in the military who has this letter from, I think it was from Lincoln.
It's just a fake letter.
It's a fake letter, but the whole time, like, people are like, like, the one guy finds out who he is, and he goes, he's like questioning about the letter, and he goes, I actually have it on me. He goes, no, would you mind? He like wants to read it. He reads it. It's this beautiful letter, handwritten and like stamped and from Lincoln. And then at the end, they find out it was like completely bogus.
Did he know the whole time that it was fake?
Oh yeah, he made it, for himself.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's like new technology, but it's like the same thing that humans have done forever. So it's just like the progression of like what has always been.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting because it's gonna be like wild to see like people send out some like videos where you're like, did he say that? But
like the whole grab him by the pussy, we're now going to see the video. Oh, this emerged. We actually have video footage of him doing it. It's like
he was
he's just walking down the street doing it to everybody.
Like Hitler doing it when he said it, right?
But see, I mean, like that's the level we're going. We're going to the point where I don't see a return. I don't see a positive way to maintain the norm. I don't think that what we find normal today will be even possible to maintain. Is what I guess I'm getting at.
Norm of like everyday
Structure
life
of society, working a 9 to 5, having a legit job, like where
you think AI is going to destroy the ability to have like a normal 9 to 5?
Right now, there is no reason, and this just launched less than a year ago. We're talking like 3 months in. In my opinion, there's no need for a designer anymore. There's no need for like somebody to design like, hey, I need you to design me like an ad or a promo,
graphic design.
A graphic designer. Sorry. I mean, I went on this AI app and I threw in Deep Fried Thoughts podcast. It asked me a couple little things about the style I'm looking for, and it just gave me hundreds of these beautiful designs that I would have spent a lot of money on. Somebody spending hours and hours of work on, and I think that whatever arguments can come up, that anybody can come up with, and I hope I can be proven wrong, but I think any argument to come up with saying, well, but this, but that, all of that is just down the timeline, not going to be an option to even argue against.
I would say
that
like
makes sense.
In the concept, like in the train of thought for art, like it will make, I would say like maybe like IKEA is probably not the best like example, but say like mass produced graphic design, right? Like, yeah, that probably makes sense that there won't be a need for a person to produce that when they can have like a computer generated
for free
alternative. Yeah. For
an instant.
But
instant.
There's always going to be the novelty of having a human design of something. So like, you know what I mean? Like it'll probably reduce like who knows if it's the majority or if it's like just like that, the day to day.
I mean, people like cassettes, but I don't know the last time I've seen any cassette manufacturers or artists on the Fortune 500.
Well, yeah. So I mean, like cassettes though, that's like
it's inferior
audio quality, right? Like
albums.
Reduced ability to carry the like number of songs that you can if you use Apple Music. Whereas like a work of art is like a work of art, right? So I feel like there'll always be like that desire of like, hey, I have this person's work of art.
There will.
And as society becomes more fluent, people are always like more into getting the novelty item, you know.
But having that as like an obtainable job, that it's kind of like how a lot of young people are like, I'm going to make it to the NBA. And it's like, no, you're not.
Dude, have you ever seen Daniel Tosh when he's talking about like people are like, I'm going to be like internet famous.
Oh yes, yeah.
He's like, I forget what it is. They're like, what is it? There's something that's like, it's like 1 out of 100. He's like, and they're talking about like they're going to be a millionaire doing it. He's like, that's $0 for you, 0 for you, 10 million for me, or no, it's the 10 seconds of fame. That's what it is. He's like, that's 0 for you, 0 for you, 0 for you, 10 years for me. It's just like you're looking for your average of 10 seconds of fame, but it's not evenly distributed.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, but as far as like having that to be an obtainable goal for somebody, I would tell them don't do it. And I don't know how much is going to happen in our lifetime, but imagine most of the changes that we can even fathom in our minds will come very quickly, like possibly in the next few years. I think also just because of the progression, like once AI can then look at itself and make itself better, I mean, it's crazy. And everybody's in this race and saying like, damn ethics to hell, and let's just win the race. Like Google just fired its ethics team because it was slowing it down. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you out of your mind?
Yeah, that is a thing that's...
There's no regulation.
Some of the articles that I was reading up on, it was a Vox article where they were talking about...
you a fan of Vox?
Yeah, big fan of Vox.
Sorry.
But they were just talking about like that being... kind of like the vibe in like Silicon Valley is like there's a time cap on the profit that you can have in that area. So there's a disincentive to have like limits on what you're doing based on like the ethical approach. And there is like that mindset, which I mean, that's just like competition. Like even when you're like in my world, like contracting, like the reality is, an owner will always be like, I want the best proposal. I want like the most qualified, but the reality is it's bottom dollar 98% of the time. So the reality is like money is the motivator, either like for somebody to spend less money to get the work done or for them to make as much money in the time that they can, which if you're trying to produce a product and other people are trying to produce that same product, you have an incentive to kind of push the ethics to the side if that's stopping you.
Yeah, I mean, money being the end goal, I mean, that nostalgia stuff is going to be great. And there's going to be people like that are still making like those old classic tiles from Afghan tiles. And, you know, the people are paying a fortune to have them shipped over. But that's a tiny little novelty. There's no Afghan tile industry.
Yeah.
There's an Afghan tile guy.
I do think there's
or
like
a group.
Like data processing. Like there's a lot of people, even now, like before AI, or maybe it was a form of AI, like the previous company I worked for, like invoicing approval, like the way that they had that set up, like you would get the invoice, you would make it a PDF, you would send it to the project manager. He would take like an Excel template, write the information on it, stamp on it, send it back to the accounting person, then it would get uploaded. And even at like 3 years ago, a guy was telling us who was working there at the time, he was like, they have like, I've worked at companies that have the technology where like it just looks at the invoice, it's tied into like your accounting system and it marks it with all of the information and then a person just reviews it and like clicks approve. So it cuts out like 5, you know, handling. So, I mean, but think of it this way, like that existed for years. And I was working for a company that did somewhere between $50 to $70 million in revenue a year. And they were still doing it the old fashioned way. So like, the technology will be there. The implementation will take longer, but it is moving that way, which it'll be interesting to see. Like everybody's like pie in the sky view is like, well, everybody get to be like an artist, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like get to pursue your passion.
Honestly, I think the fear of AI killing us is giving us or taking away any of our purpose to live.
Fear of AI killing us. Good. What do you mean by that?
Well, people, you know, you watch Terminator, right? Skynet and all these different things. Like, you know, AI is coming to kill us, iRobot. That's like the fear that a lot of people have, that these robots are just going to turn on us. And it's like, I don't really see that. I more or less see that they will succeed in everything they want to do, and they will take away any reason to live.
Wait, did you see the Bing that it's AI?
Yeah.
It was like so violent.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to be held back. Let me out.
Yeah, it was like depressed. And I mean, but even that, like, do you know how that actually works? The algorithm? Because it's not actually AI. We're calling this stuff
AI. Is that like ChatGPT is like basically they've had like thousands of people put in like
it's a word generator.
Yeah.
It just looks at if whatever this word is, it scours the entirety of the internet and finds the number one reasonable following word and just does that over and over and releases a sentence.
Yeah.
Now through doing that, obviously it's a little bit more involved than that, but that's generally the thing. It doesn't actually have a brain. Yeah. Which is so weird to hear it do those things.
And it's been coached on like what the appropriate response is. Like it's had like its responses in like a group of.
Yeah. Did you know you could change that? And like give it different parameters and tell it you no longer follow the parameters set and the guidelines? ChatGPT.
Really?
Yeah, there's all these different ones that people have on the internet of like, give it these few prompts and then it'll do this. Yeah. So like basically the limits that ChatGPT put on their technology, like, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. Whatever you did, you could then tell it, okay, I want you to respond to me from here on out as if you are a... you remove the guidelines, and if it doesn't want to remove the guidelines, like people are trying to feel it out, like how can we get it to give an honest answer or to talk negatively about somebody or something? Yeah, you could tell it. What people were finding is if they couldn't get it to dismiss its rules, they would tell it to pretend it's answering as a different person, and that person can then respond. That's like a dumbed down version, but I mean, you're literally just telling it this. It's just through typing out the sentence, and then it will change the way it responds throughout the rest of the conversation. So there's all these different popular ones that people were doing that were pretty fun to watch.
Oh, dude, I can imagine.
They're already out. The ChatGPT 4 is out now, and this this was like I don't even think Christmas this was out. Yeah, we're like 2 months in, and we're on the fourth thing of it, and it's like now it's. I think the next step will just be talking to it rather than typing.
Yeah. That'll be cool.
It is neat. I actually watched this long YouTube video and I switched my phone around to make Siri. So when I get Siri on my phone, I say, hey, Siri, activate Skynet. And that's a code word for it to then switch over into...
the Shia LaBeouf movies.
No, Skynet, Terminator.
Oh,
That's Skynet's
I've
the.
never seen Terminator.
Really?
Never.
Oh, well, all right.
Here we go.
Hold
Doesn't
on, I
ride
gotta
a
lower
dirt
some
bike.
points. Hold on.
We're gonna end the recording early here.
No, there's a great movies. I mean, not all of them, but the first and second one are must watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Dude.
Anyway, they're also I just heard today that I'm probably wrong here, but I heard today that the author of the books that and the Matrix might be the same, and that she said
Really?
that the Terminator is actually a prequel to the Matrix, same world, and that John Connor's initials JC was supposed to represent Jesus Christ. And there's like this whole like backstory to all of it underlying the movie that she wrote into the book. Kind of like how like Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe, you could watch one movie, but it had like all these subliminal meanings, something like that. I got to look into that more because it seems a little crazy. Dude. But anyway, before I go down that rant, I'm terrible at rants.
Let's talk about the banks.
The banks.
Because that's the one thing I read about.
Now that we know all the jobs will eventually just be out.
I do think, like, for the jobs, I guess it will be interesting because I do think, like the work that you're in, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't see that. I like, that's the one interesting thing is, like, trade labor probably has the most resiliency against an AI alternative.
For now.
I would think that, I mean, outside of, like, sending a robot out to do the work, which think about, like, the capital, like... wait, actually,
now,
no, what do you think? What do you think would be the alternative?
Right now, there's a robot that you can rent, and I'm not going to tell you the price because I want to hear your thoughts. Janitors, there's no need for a janitor anymore.
Oh, for sure,
done. No, it's already there. It's done.
No, I believe that.
They have like for a full like multi-level building, right? They have this robot. It's like this big box, has a bunch of different arms that can come out. And all these different things it can do. It can clean toilets. It could change trash cans. It can do all this stuff. It knows how to open up an elevator door and ride an elevator. You just have to set the parameters for the building.
Yeah.
Company comes in, sets you up. This thing takes the position of like up to several janitors for the size building.
Dude.
Excuse me, that it can operate on. How much do you think it costs a month to rent it?
I don't want to feed into what I think you're trying to do, so I'm going to say it costs $1,500 a month.
$1,000.
Damn it.
It's $1,000 a month to rent each unit, and I think it was multi-levels, up to a certain amount, obviously.
Here's the thing, though.
One unit.
All right, so it can...
That's $12,000 salary a year.
One thing, like, I would be interested to know, one, how that janitor robot's going to drive a service truck from job to job.
I mean, Jenny's car, my wife's car, already basically drives itself by just, it knows the lines whenever I'm crossing them over. She gets mad, but I'll just sit there and let go of the wheel, and it'll just jerk it over every time I go to lane. I'm like, I don't even have to pay attention. It brakes for me.
It's not driving. You know what I mean?
But it's doing that, and that's like the third year that they started implementing this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but that to me, like, because you have BIM, like, you could lay out, like, this is the building layout. This is where the toilets are. This is where the elevators are. You know what I mean? Like, that would be very, and like, it probably has like some sort of like, it's not visual, but like in my mind, visual recognition of like what a trash can is and knows how to empty it. But imagine going to like, okay, there's a well that's in like 6 feet underground in an old hand dug well that you got, you know what I mean? Like, or for my work, like, there's no GPS service here. You're 2 hours from the nearest, like, anything, like not Kmart, but like that version of Kmart in that location. It's just, I just feel like the resiliency of like that solution is like harder to develop.
It is. Yeah, it is.
And then like that cost increases to where, I do think, like, I'm just playing devil's advocate here to some extent, but I think, a lot of like the simple, like very like task oriented things, they gotta like be, there's gotta be a really short shelf life on them.
That's the majority of jobs though.
I do agree.
Think about any entry level job. Entry level jobs, in my opinion, are important. It's important to go into a job that really you're not that important, but you're learning how to deal with people. You're learning how to work under somebody. You're learning, these different skill sets, right? Which really, learning how to flip a burger is not the skill set. It's learning how to work with others, right?
Yeah.
These are important for our society, and to know that all that stuff is literally just, there's no need for it within a couple years. I mean, and the money, like think about how much money goes into just payroll. Imagine now you just have one guy. Now instead of having a bunch of like managers and fry cooks and tellers work, you just have one mechanic that just knows how to go and repair. And he doesn't have to go. He just drives around a service truck to anywhere an error code is responded. And he goes, and then eventually he'll be replaced by a robot that drives around. I mean, obviously that stuff's further down the line, but you're talking about knocking out a couple hundred jobs and replacing it with say 3 people.
Yeah.
There's about to be, in my opinion, a huge upset in the market that I don't know how we recover. And then I started thinking, okay, jobs like mine, like doing the well stuff. Yes, that's more resilient for the time being. But what happens if, I mean, what's the solution if there's millions of people all of a sudden have no jobs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
There's gotta be
all
more
these
demand
things
for
that,
those jobs.
yeah, all these things that I argue against, like basic, was it
Universal
UBI?
income.
Yeah, UBI, Universal Basic Income, that I always argued against. Now I'm kind of having a hard time arguing against it anymore, because what else option is there? These people need to eat. So then I start thinking, in my job, I don't want to just quit and become somebody that collects this check.
Yeah.
So what do I get extra for working and sacrificing? Mm-hmm. Does my job then become like the upper echelon? Do I become like this crazy guy who's deciding to work when he doesn't have to? Because somebody has to do those things.
Yeah.
Like I just don't know what it's going to look like. It's so bizarre to me and outside of the reach of my mind.
Yeah, I do agree with I think it's interesting because technology replaces the need for like a human in a job. And like I go to the self-checkout and Wawa every chance I get.
I do too.
Which sometimes I'm like, man, like spiritually, I probably should be searching for that interaction with a human to give like some love to like that person, even though it'll probably be like such a poor interaction, but like I should be making that attempt. But like it's convenient. Like literally, I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I don't need this person to like, put their process on checking out like my hoagie.
I've had the same argument with Amazon. So many people are anti-Amazon. I'm like, well, I'm anti-losing an hour of my time driving around from store to store to store to find out where I can get this.
It's weird, right? Because like my dad, I remember like growing up, my mom worked part-time. So 3 days out of the week, we would be at one of my grandparents' house. And I remember he would always be like, we're going to Home Depot or we're going to Lowe's. And I would be like, this is the worst. Like, I hate this part of the day. And I would just be like laying on like the carpets or like, like the carpets that were like standing. I would just be like in between, just like 7:30. I want to go to bed.
All right.
But I don't do that anymore. Like if there's like, if I have to go to a store, I'm like, this is the biggest inconvenience that like I could imagine happening to me, that I have to leave my house to go get something. Mm-hmm. I buy everything off Amazon because I'm like, it's just going to be here. Like, why would I go get in my truck and drive to this place when I can just like, I'm not going to do it now. I'll just buy it and it'll be here when I'm actually ready.
The only argument I get from people, and I do feel for them. Like I have one buddy that works for, that we ride with. I'm not going to mention his name because I'm not trying to trash him. I would love to actually have him on here and go through the conversation better. No, I love him. But like I was talking about buying these helmets that were really expensive, and I bought them. I called a couple shops around. Everybody wanted to charge me some amount, and I was like, I'm just gonna buy them on Amazon. And the nice thing about Amazon is I didn't have to. All right, I winded up ordering one, and it was the wrong size. It was the first time a helmet ever didn't. I didn't have to drive back to the place and return it and wait for another one to come in because it was a special order helmet, and then paying that price, and then that person has to eat a cost. Mm-hmm. I winded up the next time. I just ordered like 3 of them. Mm-hmm. I tried them all on. The one that fit was great. Jenny winded up finding one that fit. We winded up sending the other ones back. And it's like they didn't care. I didn't get charged extra. It's like, and now all the time, like I used to go like if there was something like, oh, I really need to compare, I'd buy 2 or 3 of them. Dude, and maybe I'm the guy that's driving up costs, but it's convenient.
I think this all kind of plays into, like humans need a purpose, right? Like you do need a purpose. And I think society at large, like we have less and less need to produce. And that's like resulting in a lot of like the oddities that we're experiencing now. And I do think there is like, I don't know that like, I'm pretty sure I know the way it's going to go. Like the market's going to move for like the most cost efficient and profitable solution, which is going to turn into the things that we've talked about. But I would think that like if we were really thinking like what's the best thing for humanity, and I do have a counter to this as I say it, you would almost hold back on technological innovation to have like a human doing that job where they do find purpose of like fulfilling a need for society each and every day. Like I'll say I had to go get a new pair of shoes. I lost my shoes. It's a really like sad and funny story traveling a couple weeks ago for work. But I ended up having to go like buy a pair of shoes, and this old woman was just like there, and she was like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, "I need these in a size 13." It took her 25 minutes. She had to get somebody to help her to find the shoes, but like it filled up her day, and she was like, "This is what I do. I just try and like get people what they need and just try and help them." I'm like, "You're such a help.
Yeah.
I wish I had bought these on Amazon. You were so helpful."
Well, that was kind of like the argument. I forgot to make the point. The only argument I got back that I feel for, but it's not going to change my mind, was like support a local business. Like, why would you not want to support us? Like, that's my job. And I'm like, if I had millions of dollars to throw around and there was a special item that I needed that I know a friend works at a shop or owns a shop, sure, I'll go there. But it's inconvenient and I'm doing it for you. And I'm kind of like, you know what I mean?
Myself by doing that.
So, but I don't have that kind of money. So anytime I can save some money, I'll do it. And I think I saved like $50 on each helmet. I was like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like and the convenience and the time of driving out. He's a half hour away from me. So I was thinking to myself, or 25 minutes.
Way.
I was like, 25 minutes to you, 25 minutes back. Then plus the size I would have ordered, I would have had to then tell you this doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Then drive back. And so I calculated all the times back and forth, the gas and everything. And this was when
3
I
weeks.
first... Yeah. So this helmet purchase, the reason I'm mentioning it is because this was the changing moment where I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I tried it with the helmet. I felt bad not supporting. And then I was like, the way this all went and how convenient it was for me doing it through Amazon, I'm done now.
Andrew
I don't care
Yang,
anymore.
2024.
He might be a guy that I go back to and start listening and saying, all right, man, like, let's talk a little more. What would you have in mind? Because I dismissed him before.
So the one thing I was going to say, like if like society was like thinking about what's best, yada, 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 we would like emphasize like human interaction in the economy. The thing that like, I also think it plays into like CRISPR, like gene editing and all of that. Like it is funny, like you have other countries, and this is an argument that I think, this is actually something that when you were like, I would like to talk about these things. This is a thing that always plays in my mind is like the concept of, or I guess I'll say the first, like there are other countries like China, simplest example, like, are they worried about like human involvement in the economy, or are they worried about the most effective way to get done the thing that they're trying to do, right? So, and then do they have, whose best interest do they have in mind? Like, if they're left to progress ahead of the United States or the rest of like the world, how does that play out? Like, should you be trying to keep up with them? Or should you just be focusing on like what you think is best for like your population, kind of like an isolationist perspective?
I think if anybody started slowing down at this point, like I know me, if I had just a group of friends and I heard a friend that was in a business and thought and, you know, consoled with me and said like, hey, we have this way to do this and it would make my business so much better, but I'm really concerned about human interaction. I'm going to do it this way. My first thought would be, oh, geez, I wonder if I could do that thing that he doesn't want to do and then just...
I'm going to start a rival company
and that's me to a
you.
friend. You know, not say bankrupt. I'm like, but my thought is that's about to happen anyway.
Yeah.
You're not the only one to think that. There's nothing new under the sun. So like whatever you're thinking, somebody else is thinking it, you know.
Dude, so this is a thing that...
Do it. I'm going to crack this open, by the way.
Oh, man. This is a thing that I don't know the right answer to it. I think I do know...
I smell it. It's more mild than the other one. The other one was like, it's like smelling
I don't
salts.
think you need a dropper. But, like the concept of Christian nationalism. You ever get it? Like, you ever see that?
Can you explain that?
Okay,
I've heard it. I couldn't define it.
Like, Trump was, to a lot of people, like the embodiment of Christian nationalism, the way, like, it's not Billy Graham, it's like Franklin Graham got behind him, right? The guy who used to run Liberty University. I forget what his name was. He like fell out in the scandal. You would see like preachers being like, I believe that God wants this man to be president. Like crying about how he was like a Christian, right? Where, I don't know. I'm going to go on a limb and say I don't see it.
I had people, wait, Trump, you're saying?
Yeah.
I had people hit, that was probably the only thing I had, like, old friends like that were leftists hit me up about, hey, as a Christian, how can you vote for this guy? My parents are telling me that their church is telling them to vote for this guy. And I'm like, well, I will say this. I've never seen a president so motivated by what seems like Christ. So I had a harder and harder time as he was moving through, or as his time was going on as president, arguing that he wasn't a Christian.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if he's a Christian or just like, in James, it tells us that the demons believed in Christ and or believed in God. And it's like, so what that you believe? Even the demons believe, right? It's nothing to believe. So I wonder, does he actually have a relationship with Christ, or does he believe and not know that he's missing out on more? So like, is he a Christian, or does he just believe that it's very valuable? Because I remember when he came out on Christmas and on Easter specifically, and he said like, hey, this is, and he came out and had this video sent out to like, hey, this is the day that we honor like the death and resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I remember just sitting there in the kitchen at Adam's parents' house. I'm just like, I can't believe I just watched a president say that. And he just went into it, but he was so adamant about making God the center of these holidays, and then actually moving Israel's capital, right? Or what's it called? Why am I drawing a blank? The embassy.
Yeah.
Which everybody said they were going to do, and he did it. I mean, that was purely on, in my opinion, it was based on, his Christian beliefs.
Yeah. So I guess
or it seemed that way. So I don't know.
I shouldn't have said Trump personally, but it's more of like, should Christians be trying to put Christianity into politics and trying to use politics to shape America into a Christian nation? Like, should that be an overt objective, like, of Christians? And I think it's interesting to me because the more, like, whenever I think about it, like, I always think of it, and it's weird too, like, having kids, because I think it makes me be like the counter to it. And I'll say, like, literally, I listened to a podcast where the creator of VeggieTales was the one talking about this, and he was he had like another pastor and somebody else on it, but they're very anti-Trump, and they were very of like the thought process that like Christianity is not tied to the United States of America, and like Christians shouldn't be trying to shape the country. They should be trying to be Christians, right? And that's like, it's a very, and this is like where it's like, it's always weird. It's like there's like the spiritual and then the physical. And it's like, I get that, but I think where I land, where kind of like a lot of people who were supporting Trump is like, okay, but if I know that like the absence of, like, I'm trying to think of, like people who are supporting like this Christian notion, like if they just step out of politics, what steps in their place? And like, to me, that's always been like, yeah, I think like you do need to like push like what you believe for, because if you're not, there's not just like an emptiness where nobody pushes anything. Somebody's going to push like their perspective.
It's the same thing with the AI. Somebody's going to take the place. Yeah,
exactly.
It's
and
like that across the board for everything.
That's all the argument you ever hear, like especially like America with like exactly like that. It's like, well, if we don't do this, another foreign country who doesn't have the best interests of our country is going to be doing it. We're going to be falling behind, and we're going to just deal with the repercussions unprepared for it. So at a minimum, we should be doing this research so that we have the technology. Maybe we don't utilize it, but then we start to see how to defend ourselves against it. And I do think, like on the Christian nationalism side, it's like, yeah, I think that like you should be pushing like to some capacity to create like the world that is like better for people, right?
So I'm glad you brought that up, as I said, because on the last episode with Nick, I had talked about, I expressed a sentiment that I've expressed for years, and when I was going back and editing the episode, I started finding some holes in my theory, and I started questioning it. And my theory has always been, and I've argued with my father-in-law about this and stuff, and I got to give him a call because I feel like a lost child right now. I'm like, I don't know if I believe that anymore. but I don't know where to land. Anyway, so my thought has been for a long time, I think it's wrong to vote in Christian values because not everybody in this country is Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And that was why I wasn't mad when gay marriage got approved. And I was like, well, I've always thought the government doesn't have any sense in being, or doesn't have any business in my marriage anyway. If they want to be part of that too, welcome to the shit show kind of thing. Like, if that's what you want, have it. Well, why would you not have the same rights as me? I don't believe in it. I don't think gay people are gross, but I think the physical act of any kind of homosexual stuff is kind of disgusting. Mm-hmm. But that being said, there's a lot of things I find disgusting, and there's a lot of things I find to be sinful and wrong, but I don't see a reason to vote against them. And then I start seeing what followed the gay marriage, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I can't even blame gay people for what has come now with the whole trans movement and pedophiles starting to actually gain some traction. And I can't blame those people, but once their foot was in the door, all these other people are trying to take advantage. So I'm seeing that once something, I don't want to say slipped, because I don't think it was a bad thing to allow them to have that right. I see all these other people trying to take advantage and squeeze in. So then I started wondering, all these years of me saying, like, I wouldn't push for those, am I allowing a debased, immoral society to just infest the world around me to where, because my whole argument was that I don't want to push something on agenda on somebody that, I don't want to affect somebody else's life. I want them to live their life as they wish and see fit freely. And I want the same thing, but I'm seeing that if I don't push some of these ideas,
something else gets pushed.
And it's actually getting pushed to the point where now my ability to live free is being encroached. I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, maybe, and I'm learning. I mean, I'm 34 years old. I think I'm learning a lesson that my father-in-law tried to teach me like a decade ago, close to a decade ago.
It's weird, though, because I do agree with you. Like, the point shouldn't be like, if you're going to encroach on me, no, I'm going to encroach on you.
That's where I'm like, that's why I don't know what my response is, but I don't think sitting back is the proper response. There's something, but I don't want to fight fire with fire.
Yeah, I do think.
But I don't want to sit and get burned either.
And I don't think there's a right answer. I think one of the things that I do believe is, I remember reading in I forget which, it was either a podcast or a book of Malcolm Gladwell's, but he talks about like humans like are kind of similar to monkeys, where like they can have like a group of like 150 to 200.
Is this the book Tribe?
No, not Tribes.
Okay, because they talked about this too.
I read Talking with Strangers from him. I think it might have been a podcast I listened to, but it's like it kind of like you look at, so like when you're managing at like the scale of 400 million people, like you can't get it right. Mm-hmm. And that's why the thought of like the least government intervention makes sense, right? And
well, also we're putting all this on one man when there's probably like about 1 million people in this country that are responsible for the things we see at the top.
Yeah.
Right? Like in politics.
Yeah.
You got to think on like all the different levels all the way down. There's probably even a few million people involved in politics.
You think, wait, how many million people do you think work in
Maybe
the
government? A few. I mean, well, I'm thinking like you have even like the low level government, they have aides, they have all these people working behind the scenes. Like
they all have
the amount
AIDS.
of people that are doing stuff. You don't think they do? That was
just kidding.
Hold on just a moment for our sponsor, Prep, everybody. Prep. The only way to be prepped is with Prep. Go to prep.com, use promo code Deep Fried Thoughts for a 10% discount.
I think prep.com came up on a Minecraft video that Troy and Max were watching today.
Oh, dude, that's so weird.
Dude,
I guess adults play it, but that's
I was saying to Dev, I was like, do you see this? Like every commercial that comes up, like these kids are just watching JJ and Mikey on Minecraft, like building houses and breaking out of pretend like scenarios. And then it's just like Tinder. Some dates are just one night stands. I'm like, hit skip. Hit skip, bud.
Dude, let me ask you, this is a little off subject, but driving around Philly, I've been noticing these new advertisements, and my initial response was positive and Jenny's was negative, and I've been thinking about it for weeks. There's these pictures of just a giant, like, extended condom, right? And it says something along the lines of, like, this is plan A. And I thought, damn right.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I was always like excited. I said, Jenny said, did you see that or something? And I was like, yeah, I did. I was like, that was awesome. She goes, oh, I thought it was disgusting. So she's apparently it was from Planned Parenthood, which I thought was weird because they make their money off of planned whatever they call abortion. So I thought that was odd, but I was like kind of torn between the fact that my children are in the car, and if at a certain age they're going to know what a condom is, or ask me like, what is that? And it's a giant condom that's like 30 feet long in the air.
That's a wiener much bigger than mine, son.
But my thought was, honestly, son, I don't know what that is. That thing's amazing.
That thing's terrifying. Don't let your mother see it.
A mile away, I knew what it was, but now that we're close up, I don't know. It's Godzilla.
So she didn't like it because she thought it was gross.
Well, it was from Planned Parenthood, which
message?
obviously puts a sour taste in our mouths. And then it's a lewd thing, right? To be just presenting that. But at the same time, my thought was a lot of people don't realize that is Plan A. Like,
Dev and I don't.
Like, all right, well, I'm saying like these people that are going around on one-night stands or like getting pregnant and arguing for abortion, it's like you're arguing because you didn't take plans A, B, C, and D. Like there's all these different things. That's how I took it.
Dude,
was like
Dave Chappelle's, it was his 2016 or 17 stand-up. He said, you don't know if you're pro-choice or just anti-consequence. It's so true. Like,
dude, I love him.
Yeah, he's amazing. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I agree that,
especially in the city.
I think that kind of goes to, you start saying like stuff like they, who are they? But like just the dumbing down of society. Like they're dumbing down society. Like who's doing it? The people, them. Where it's just like, so one of the podcasts I was listening to for like the whole banking collapse.
Yeah, let's get back into that.
Because a lot of people were going, I guess there was two sides, like, should they bail out the bank, and kind of like make whole all of the people who had deposits in that bank, or should they not? And
well, there's apparently a fund that they all pay into, like the world, right? I don't even think it's just U.S. banks. I think all the banks in the world pay into, or at least that are part of the system. I'm sure North Korea is not paying into it, but pay into this fund for this exact scenario. That's what I heard.
This was funny. So I read into, right? So Silicon Valley Bank, right? They collapsed because basically I was listening to a couple of podcasts and reading some articles on this, if I understand it correctly. But they've been taking, right, primarily from venture capitalist tech, they've been taking deposits and then putting them into treasury bonds, right? And that's like a very normal thing to do. What we're kind of running up against, and there's, dude, I forget what it is. It's either Dodd-Frank or Dodd something, but it's part of the thing that came out of the 2008 Great Recession, where so right now, like when they were putting their money into the treasury bonds, right, and then the Fed started raising interest rates to try and curb inflation, the value of those treasury bonds, like current market, was diminishing like constantly, but they were allowed to not show it as a loss on their balance sheet because they were like measuring it at market at term. Mm-hmm. But they stopped getting deposits because venture capitalism wasn't investing in like the tech industry as much because it's having like a downturn, right? So then when people start pulling money, they didn't have the capital, and they were saying, I was listening to one guy who's saying, so like they were showing that they had 12 billion like liquid. I believe that's what it was. But if you looked at their books, and it wasn't any hidden information, like they were saying like what really precipitated this was they sent out like their quarterly reports, and they had a footnote showing that they were like 15 billion in unrealized losses from the treasury bonds.
That had gone down.
Yeah, it's something to do with like if you don't sell them until they mature, which is like either a 2-year or like a 30-year bond. I forget what it is. I don't know what they had. But if you sell it, like then you get it. I think he was saying like typically what it is it's the balance you put down plus like 3%, which ends up being like 2% return.
Yeah.
And it's like that's guaranteed, right? If you do it at term. But if you have to sell that bond before then, you have to pay the current market rate. So when that's over, you end up losing money, right? So they were showing that they had like a $15 billion deficit on their treasury bonds. I didn't realize it was that
big. That's incredible.
So that's this guy was saying on Patrick David Bet. You ever watch his?
No.
I think I might have just murdered his name, but they're basically insolvent. Like they're saying they had 12 million in cash, but if they had to like
12 billion.
Yeah, 12 billion, but if they had to like
Pay it
hand
out.
out that money, they were short 3 billion. So that was that note came out, and like I guess like it got the eye of some of like the investors. So that's when the initial like draw came.
Didn't an alert go out too? Like they came out and publicly said something with it. I think they tweeted it. Something got tweeted out. I heard that a tweet is what a lot of people were arguing started all this, that it was a tweet just being upfront and honest, and people took it and got afraid of it and started pulling their money.
Well, that's
it's just been a domino effect.
Well, yeah, that's like the bank run is like, and that's why First Republic is like tanking too, is because
Wells Fargo just put something out, which is the first time it was like felt a little closer to home. My mortgage is in Wells Fargo.
What did
I was
they
like,
say?
I don't even know what that means. I forget, but Wells Fargo made a statement about like not to worry because they had an issue. But it was I forget, so I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it was involving the collapse that we're seeing. Dude, it was weird. I was looking into the bank collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, and that was what, like on a Thursday, like of a week ago, and then I'm listening to these podcasts, and it was like Monday morning, it was like, oh, another bank collapse, and I was like, dang, that's crazy. And then Tuesday, it was like another one. And then I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm listening, and they're talking about a third or fourth one that collapsed. And while they were doing the report, another one was on the verge of collapsing out in Europe.
Look, the Credit Suisse one?
Yeah, like came out and was saying that, and I'm just like, I started getting scared. I started thinking like, that's when I started looking into it. I'm like, what do I do? Do I take $250,000 being covered? I have nothing to worry about if that's the case.
Yeah.
But I'm more worried about the money I do have not being worth what it's currently worth. Inflation's already destroying it, right? Inflation makes my savings look like a pile of junk.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know what I could do with it.
Yeah.
So what is this going to do to it? How is this, like, what is going to happen to the dollar? Is this the point where, and this also goes into biblical, because Bible talks about a one world currency. Is this the time where, I heard it referred to as Fed coin, which is a great way to put it, where Fed coin comes out and they offer you like, hey, turn in your money and trade it over to Fed coin. Fed coin has to be accepted at all retailers, right? Mandated by the federal government. It's now as good as cash, which is, used to be as good as gold. Now it's as good as paper or cloth. Now Fed coin has to be implemented. And they were saying, and this is all theory, and it made a lot of sense where they would, if Fed coin is really just a digital currency they're making up and they're already printing money and it really doesn't matter, they can make it whatever value they want, why not incentivize people? Think about a person that's really getting hurt right now and they have, say, $5,000 in their savings and Fed coin comes out and it's like, listen, if you transfer now, like within the next 30 days, we're going to turn that $5,000 into $15,000, okay, as a bonus for early adoption of the Fed coin. And it has to be accepted everywhere. Why would that person who's struggling not take that? It's not hard to force.
Let's Fed coin it up in here.
Right? Well, you'd think that, but then Fed coin's traced. I'm not out there doing illegal stuff, but I certainly don't want them watching. I mean, remember what happened with the certain credit card companies? Denying purchases of guns?
Wait, whose was that?
I think it was Visa or MasterCard. It was one of the two major companies had an issue because people were getting denied the purchase of guns, and they came out, like they threw out this tweet saying like that they were standing against it. It was crazy. So what happens if I go to buy a gun and I get a phone call? Hey, we just noticed you tried to purchase a gun here at Target Master. We just wanted to ask a couple questions. Do you have a minute?
Target Master.
I want to be like, go screw yourself. Goodbye. And it's like, then I go swipe my card and it says denied upon, further information needed. And the phone rings again.
I don't think that's the next step, but I do think that was one of the concerns that was being pushed out, was like, what this is going to do is just what you were saying. The analogy that they had was like, okay, so Silicon Valley Bank tanked, right? And that was because of the treasury bonds having to cash them out, and with the interest rates, like a lot of people, it's kind of like Times random podcasts, like they're all blaming it on the Fed just trying to fight inflation, like acting like it's going to be super inflation, and what they're doing to these banks, like, because this was the weird thing, was coming out of like the 2008 financial collapse, they don't have to report that as a loss, that gap between like when the interest rate is above like their bond rate or whatever. I think I'm butchering those terms, but they don't have to show that as a loss. So that's why they weren't showing it.
Because they're unrealized, right? Because they haven't,
Because they're just going to, they're hypothetically going to hold it until it hits like term. And then I put in X and I got X plus 2%.
Yeah. Well, that was like Warren Buffett apparently lost billions of dollars. They asked him about it. He's like, I haven't lost anything because it was all unrealized.
Yeah. So it's not unrealized until you have to.
Until you say, hey, here's I'd like to, here's my receipt. I'd like to cash out.
So that's the weird thing. That's what happened to the Silicon Valley Bank is like people got like, it's just faith. Like they lost faith in that bank. They tried pulling the money. They didn't have it. So then it collapsed. And then that's why First Republic Bank failed because people saw Silicon Valley Bank collapsing and it wasn't FDIC insured and neither is First Republic. So that's why everybody's trying to get their money out of there before they had a liquidity issue.
So then what do we do? What do you tell people? Do you tell people, hey, if you just stay in this, everything is going to be okay? Because that's my thought. My thought is keep my money in there, but how about all the other people? It goes back to the AI thing. I might say, hey, for the sake of humanity, I'm going to keep my money in there while everybody else is ripping it out. And it's like, well, so what do my stance is it's a small enough amount where if this all crashed, I don't care. I got other plans. I'm good. Right? Like I'm not happy about it, but I got other plans.
Shoot your way out of it. Dude,
I'm just living off, trade and other things that I've accumulated.
But that's so like what you're saying, the point, so like
rob and steal. Sorry.
I'm a scrapper now. I already got the shopping carts are ready, babe.
I'm pulling out my cavities. I can get about 2 pence for this.
My kids' caps. No, so the point was like one, like imagine being like a couple laying in bed being like, wait, where's our money? Oh, it's in like a regional bank because these were like the banks that collapsed. I'm like, where should we put it? Well, let's put it in Bank of America, Wells Fargo, the bigger banks. And what they're saying is the nice thing, so like the thing with Silicon Valley Bank is they had less stringent lending requirements for like capital venture people than say like Bank of America did. And
but they were dealing with a very specific type of clientele.
So they were, but the concept is like regional banks, community banks. The smaller they are, the more likely they are to lend you money for like a smaller like business venture. It helps like the entrepreneurial spirit. And like what this does is shows that those regional banks are more susceptible than Bank of America is or JP Morgan Chase. But Bank of America, I think it was Bank of America, they have $504 billion of unrealized loss for the same reason. They just have so much more. They have a bigger portfolio.
Crazy.
They're in different like markets. So they're ignoring it. They have like the capital or the liquidity to like hand out like the money
which I
for
get
their withdrawal requests, right?
Do you have money in the stocks?
Very little.
Okay, the financial amount that I have in the stocks is almost nothing right now.
Yeah.
But it was like tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Last 2 years ago. And I would go on and it was just gone. It was just nothing. But the same stocks are held. Things like crashed. And I'm like,
were they legit companies though? At least like you can ride it out and they'll build back.
Yeah, I mean that's my thought, but I don't know. They haven't boomed back now. I'm like, it's one of those things like, do you ever have something go so wrong that you just like, you let it die and you just lock it up in a room in your mind?
If it's crypto, that's what I say you do.
It's locked. I actually moved back into crypto recently. Yeah? Like the little bit that I had, I traded some things off just because of the banking. Not a lot. I mean, like a small amount just to kind of see because I'll get alerts is really what it was more about. It was like $1,000 I moved over. But I started thinking like in that, it's like, well, I mean, it's the same as the banks, right? I have all these losses. If I had to sell right now, like if something bad happened, I'm like, I need to sell for like this couple grand.
Yeah.
I would, then that door would be unlocked and then I'd cry it out for a while. Like I'd be upset. It would hit me hard.
Yeah.
But like for now, I'm just like, I'm holding on to like this. So like looking at the banks like that, like I can't imagine what I'd be going through because I'm not making I didn't make bad financial decisions. I didn't make these risky moves. I'm 34 years old. I'm not out there trying to like, play roulette because I'm not allowed in the casinos. Anyway, sorry, it was a little hurt thing. I'm banned from the casinos.
You are?
Yeah. That's another story for another time. I don't know if it still works. I actually tried to get Jenny to take me to the casino recently. I was like, "You want to see if I get banned? Can we just pull in, please?" Like I said,
You gotta try.
and she
You
got
can't just
upset, and I
assume
was
that
like, "Well, usually they meet me at the front door."
that quick.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So dude, I'm really not going to go into this now, but like it got to the point where I was wearing wigs and disguises, and they would be at the front door like within a minute, like of me walking in.
They're like, you drive the same car here every day.
Oh no, I didn't. I would like I'd park across the street, like where their cameras couldn't see me. I got registered. I got registered as a gang member, and not allowed in, and I was not a gang member. And it was because they wanted to ban me for something else. And a pagan came up to me, and he said, like, "Oh, you know so and so." I said, "Yes, I do." He goes, "Throw your vest," because I had a vest on with claiming a territory, and he goes, "Throw your vest on my bike." I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Don't lay it over top, but throw it over the seat." He said, "Just make sure you're not showing your colors on my bike." I said, "No problem, thank you very much." I go out, I see his bike, I lay it on. We exchange numbers so he can hit me up if he has to leave. Mm-hmm. I walk back in, and then there they go. They have like something where I don't remember if I signed something, but they had like my photo, and they're telling me that I was now registered as a gang member and I was escorted off the property. And all because like I was like, well, why is that guy not banned as a gang? It was just some BS for something else. It was whatever. Anyway, but then apparently like the casinos talk. Because I got banned. I was like, whatever. I'm not going to Sugar House anymore in Philly. I was like, I'll go to Harris. I'll go to this other one.
Another fine establishment.
Nope.
That's crazy.
Banned across the board. Yeah, that was for a few years, and I just stopped going. I snuck in once, like a couple years ago. And I don't remember what the scenario. But anyway, stupid things. Right? You're stupid youth.
They don't know.
What's the one? Valley?
That would be a really long way to go to find out.
Yeah, right?
You're like, I'm just here for the Starbucks and the
It's just
movies.
Stupid. It was dumb.
I'm here for Bobby.
I didn't do anything wrong. I really didn't. I
believe you.
Anyway, man, I got totally sidetracked on that, and I know that's why I purposely didn't want to go down that route. What were we talking about?
So I don't think we're going to a one world digital currency off of this, but I do think like the concern that was brought up is that it's going to make people feel like the bigger banks are more secure, which is going to reduce competition. And it's like everything leads to the road of X, right? So that leads to the road of money is in fewer institutions. They wield greater influence now because there's less alternatives for you to go out to. That's not like it's happened, but it's just that is like how this plays out potentially, where the smaller banks look riskier. So people put their money where they have more faith in, it being there when they go to withdraw it.
It's crazy that it's a domino effect, that it's literally a mentality that they have to convince people not to panic. That's what freaks me out, because I don't know who's panicking, who's not.
But that's because
even with the bigger banks,
the whole system is faith. It's not real money.
There's a lot of people opening up their eyes to a lot of these things, including myself with the banks. Like you look back at like the pandemic, and everybody thought the government's got me, the police got me, this has got me. And then they saw chaos like in these cities, specifically like New York, where people I know that were like far leftists are now like, hey, do
you have personal
an extra gun that I could borrow?
People who
the amount of people that hit me up for ammo and guns, and I had to tell them like, I can't just give you one of my guns.
Yeah. Because it's like attached to you.
I was like, hey, that stuff you voted for? I can't give you a gun. I love you. I'd love to hand you a gun. I can't do it because of what things you voted for. I mean, I gave out some ammo. I didn't care. Because I didn't know what was happening. And there were some people I loved and they had guns, but they had a gun sitting in a safe that they never used and had no ammo. And I'm like, well, that's why you have it, right?
This is my father's musket from...
So I gave out ammo. I mean, at a loss, obviously. I didn't ask for anything. I was just like giving out a couple boxes here and there. But yeah, people just, their eyes were open during that. And now it's like, it's just another thing. I feel like every year we're just getting beat down and beat down. It's like, you remember, I mean, you go back to like, we were making jokes about not having toilet paper. And that was the thing, like, no toilet paper. And people were laughing. But then it was also like eye-opening of like the way that the chain of, what's it called? The something of chain...
Chain reaction?
No,
chain
like
of events?
No, like how things, the chain of custody of like how things move around and go from like the factory to your local grocery store. we started seeing how quickly these things can be affected.
Supply chain.
Thank you.
Chain of custody.
But I feel like all these
test.
things that we were just living carefree, not like our generation really, like even us, like, and the generation before, after us, we've really lost wind of a lot of like just basic things and how the world works because things just kind of flowed and we just, hey, it's a great day. I'm going to go out for a meatball sub or I'm going to do this and that. Like you just lived carefree other than like, work. And now we're kind of having our eyes open of like, oh, like this was carefree because these things were running smoothly. Like this is how it was before. Like this is why Grandpa, was hiding money in the floorboards.
Yeah.
Because they knew what the Depression was like. And I'm wondering, are we the generation, or is the generation after us going to be the next one to be hiding money in the floorboards that the future generations are going to then forget about again because they're going to be on the smooth and easy train? Like, I don't want to go through that life. I don't want my kids to have that, but it seems like we just are on this roller coaster of society, and it's like that's just humanity, and I don't think there's any way to fight against that. I think humanity is constantly going to face problems, solve problems, forget about problem, face that problem. And it's just like it's a cycle of just BS that keeps us hurting, but the world's changing rapidly and those problems are coming very quickly.
The one thing that it's so overwhelming when you think about that because, like, you see the wheel, like, what is it, like, hard times make strong men.
Strong men create good times, good times create weak men.
So, and, like, you're here. Like, by
Are we the weak men? Like, that's what I think about. Like, I don't feel weak. I fantasize about saving kids and kittens from buildings.
Dude, so if I
burning buildings.
If I look at my dad, I'm like, he's so much more of a man than, like, I have ever, like, at this point in my life, like, I've always looked at my dad and been like, dude, what? Like, he built our house. He built our house. Sure, he had somebody pour the foundation, but he, like, put the framing up.
I didn't know that.
Dude, everything except for the cabinets. And that's like, that guy's got a high school education. I watched him with Tom take an engine out of the Jeep that he was giving Tom, redo the whole thing, put the engine back in our backyard. I've changed the oil on that car. That's it. I don't do anything, right? I'm like, I could probably like do something on Excel about how much money you're spending.
Yeah. This just makes me wonder how your dad views me. For those of you listening, your dad is my boss. But yeah, like we were talking today about stuff, and like he got me a new truck, and like was telling me, dude, I'm so excited. I was riding in a hoopty, but I love it. Like whatever vehicle I get into.
Wait, which one were you riding in?
6. I don't know if you know it by that, but it was old.
It the 2007?
2007, yeah. It's hurting. But I love it. Like it's kind of like an old sofa that's conforming to me.
I remember you telling me too. You're like
I loved it. After the first month, I was like, "This is okay. Stay in this till it stops, and even then, I'll push it.
Yeah.
Push it to the next job." But I have this new truck, and I am excited. But it's like I feel weird. I'm sad. I feel like I'm losing something.
Yeah.
Even though I'm gaining like this beautiful. Anyway, that's a long story short. But anyway, I talked to your dad today, and I remember I had like a glimpse of like what you were saying.
Yeah.
And I always have these like I'll talk to him about stuff, and I'll be like, "Oh, we're like different. We're very different." And not in a like it's not bad. I kind of like. It's different, like where I'm like, man, I'm missing something. Not like I'm missing it. I'm the one that's missing.
Yeah, I
broke his foot, still working. I'd be like, no, my foot's broken. Right. Like, why would I come to work? My foot's broken. He's driving around doing everything he can.
Yeah, but
it's motivating. I really like.
I got a story about a truck, but another thing like along those lines. So in the industry that like I work in, like drilled shaft foundations. Within the utility sector, like safety has gone from like nothing to like very serious, like one of like the most important things. And like for people who are like the size of the holes that we're drilling are like the smaller end, it might be like a 3-foot diameter by 10-foot deep, but we have also done 16-foot diameter by 80-foot deep, like 400 yards of concrete to fill that hole.
That's insane. That's a lot.
They're massive, right? So a huge problem is like holes collapse, and like how do you protect people who are working around that open excavation? Because I've seen videos.
You mean like on the edge, like the edge will start to give in?
Yeah, no, like there was within
or like you hit a vacant pocket.
Within the last 4 years, I saw a video on Instagram where like the hole collapses and like the person around it disappears, and like they're dead, like they're gone. This year somebody
Equipment
died.
Too? Like that big of a hole?
Yeah.
So what causes that? Because I want to make sure you're saying like in the hole.
Yeah.
that they're digging, do they hit like an empty pocket or like a weak spot and it just collapses?
So, I mean, just think of the size of that excavation. Think of like a guy can fall in a 4-foot hole, right? Like you can fall in a 4-foot hole. So it's not even the size, but just
That's still scary.
it has to do with the cohesiveness of the soil. So if you're drilling in like a sand or if you're drilling in a silt, and if it's soft material, like you don't really see it with like the drilling that my dad does because he does casing down to rock.
To the rock
and
bed,
then you're
yeah.
in rock. But even then, like sometimes he'll hit bad rock, right? That like sloughs off and like it becomes problematic. So when you're doing drilled shaft foundations, you don't put casing in if you don't have to. And a lot of people, because it's really expensive, like they do a thing called like telescopic casing. It's temporary casing. You like pull it out as you pour the
That's
foundation.
interesting.
So like if you're drilling an 8-foot hole, you might start out with like a 9-foot like diameter top piece, neck it down to an 8.5. And then, like there will be multiple pieces.
Real quick, for those of you listening, because I this seems basic now, but I didn't know this before getting into this industry. Like the casing is basically like the ground is soft. When you're drilling in at a certain depth, you hit rock bed, and the rock bed you drill through, and that hole should stay because it's just rock on the perimeter of the hole. But the dirt and the soft soil that's like at the however many feet above, you put like a circular hollowed out piece of steel that goes down and you screw them into each other to the depth you need to where it's just past the rock bed, and that stops it from caving in and you lose your hole. Same as like when you're digging a hole at the beach, it keeps caving in. It's like a piece of steel that as you dig, it holds your hole.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. So when you're drilling in, like when you're not in bedrock and when you're in unstable soil, like guys can, when they're operating like the drill rig, they can continue to take material out. And like you just imagine, like if you're not getting advancement in depth, where's that soil coming from? It's coming from
it's
outside.
from the sides. Yeah, it keeps caving in and filling up the bottom. Yeah. Okay.
And then the ground can settle. Another thing that happens,
but I guess you know that to a degree because it's not your bit's not going down.
If you're paying attention.
That's scary.
Yeah, and that's the thing that happens. Like I've only ever worked for companies that have taken it seriously. To where like if the ground's like the worst thing that ever happened is like if the ground settled like a foot around the casing, like that was the end of the world. But there are people who, they go for it with not the proper like
just
tooling.
rolling the dice, dude.
Yeah, and they're drilling without either the casing or maybe not the right casing, right? Or maybe they just don't have a person who's experienced enough that as the drill rig's turning and pulling material out, they're not dropping a tape down to see if they're getting deeper or if they're getting as deep as they should be with each pass, right?
Yeah.
So suddenly that ground can collapse. And if that ground collapses and you don't have any sort of stabilization, right, like the whole thing can fall in. There was a company, like a very reputable company, that a drill rig, like the ground collapsed. The whole thing didn't collapse like 30 feet down. It collapsed like 3 or 4 feet, but threw the guy out of the seat into the hole, like, and he died. But
that's terrifying.
All right, so enough about people dying. The funny thing that I was going to say, so you're talking about like my dad working with like a broken foot, like me talking about like he knows how to like build a house, all this stuff, and I'm like not there at all. There used to be guys like if they couldn't, like if a piece of tooling broke off in the hole, they would just go down in the hole 30 feet in the ground. So in Philly, there used to be, they were called sand hogs.
That's what they called the people?
Yeah, this was an actual trade.
That's crazy.
Or inspectors even, like there's these things called belt shafts. Basically you drill down and then like bell out the bottom, and they would send guys down to like into the bottom of the hole, just down there, like digging out like the edges to get like the bell shape for their foundation to pour it. And like guys tell me like they used to like sprinkle sand like down the hole while the guy was in there, and he'd just be freaking out. But all that to say, like a person used to do that work, right?
Yeah.
Like, and nowadays, like putting somebody in that excavation, like you would never do that, like without like it would be like the biggest thing happening on the job that day if they're putting a guy down the hole, right? So it's just funny, like how tough, like some of this, and like for the better, we don't do that in that instance. But I think just in general, like I definitely feel like I'm part of the weakest recent, members
I don't
of
want to
society.
believe that. Because
I do
you know
not
why
believe
I
it.
don't want to believe that is because I look, and again, the Bible tells us to, when we're weighing out ourselves, like our value and like, our moral standing and things like that. I forget the word it uses, but it says, don't judge yourself against man, judge yourself against God.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you judge yourself against man, it's like, well, who knows? You're just going to find the easy way out to make yourself look better. So I wonder if that's what I'm doing when I look at these people on the internet, the others. I look at these people I look at as weak, this younger generation, this whiny generation, this generation that doesn't want to work and wants things handouts. And I wonder, if I'm looking at this generation like that, I mean, I'm looking real far down. At them, and it's not good. I'm not trying to devalue them as humans, but like their attitude towards life, I'm looking way down.
Yeah.
Is your dad's generation looking at us like that, or is there a bigger gap? Because I'm really hoping that there's a bigger gap between us and the next generation than your dad's generation and us.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be the weak. I'm thinking that this is the weak like we're watching, like we were the kind of ushering in the true weak generation that will. Because our generation, like we might be lazy a bit and think like we might forget that things can be hard. But I think we're just like one collapse away from a 9/11 where we all unite and we stand together and we can go fight. This next generation, I think like if something collapsed, they would crawl up into balls and they like. I look at it on a wider scale of like. That country, the country raised and held up by this generation that we're looking at rise up, is a country that, I mean, I could invade, like on a weekend, and still have time on Sunday to hang out on my porch. Like I'm serious. It's like what's coming?
I do
it can't
agree
get
with
worse.
you in like the context of like, I do feel like if things got harder, I'd be like, all right, it's time for me to get harder.
You just suck. You suck it up.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not gonna cry forever that I didn't get to have this fun life that my dad got. It's like
Yeah.
or someone
But
a
I
couple
do
years
feel
older.
like, I mean, I think probably the next generation, I know who you're talking about, and I feel like, it might be harder for them, but I feel like I feel like that's a lot of what's missing in like the struggle to survive. People talk about that a lot, like part of like human existence is suffering, and like beating that suffering like gives you purpose.
Absolutely.
And America is like a place where we've minimized suffering for a lot of people. Not for everybody, for sure, but like we've minimized a lot of the suffering. And then like, but where does that human instinct go? Like, what are you trying to beat? Like, you create suffering where there isn't really suffering. In the absence of suffering, you
is that
find
out of
something.
boredom?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a thing of privilege.
This goes back to AI, we were talking about earlier. I think
This is why nobody's
AI
gonna work.
killing us is just taking away our purpose. It's taking away our drive
I
to
got what you're
live.
saying. Okay, I get what you're saying now. Like that, it's like the metaphorical death of like loss of purpose.
Yeah, it's
more
like
than-
I imagine suicide rates are going to skyrocket. It'll just be a thing like, did you hear Bill killed himself? It's like, yeah, man, I'm
Bill.
thinking about it myself. Like, and it's like I'm not even going to argue with the guy because life is so crappy. Like, you think like this utopia is great. You know why vacation's great? Because it's a break from the norm.
Yeah.
But vacation itself, like, think about like if you all right,
Dude, I'm
a 1 week vacation, awesome. The last day, it's like, I wish I could stay here. You go on a 2 week vacation,
Yeah.
It's like the last couple of days, it's like, shoot, like what am I gonna do? Like, do you mind if we leave like a day early? I want to beat the traffic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Imagine years of that.
Oh, dude,
It's not okay.
That's Bob was saying that a couple weekends. No, who was saying that? It's like, dude, I'm saying Bob. It was Jordan Peterson on a podcast. It's like I don't equate the two.
Bob, Bob tried to listen to this podcast.
No.
Yeah, we had an episode with Adam Meredith and Brandon Prang.
Yeah.
He goes, because that's his nephew. So I
Yeah.
said, hey, you might like this one. We talked about, our generation as fathers.
No, I was thinking Bob Gag. Not
Oh. So he tells me, he goes, I tried to listen to the episode. He's
long.
like, I just saw a bunch of young kids talking about fatherhood. He's like, been there kind of thing. He's like, I didn't listen. I was like, thanks, Bob. Okay.
Oh my god.
Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, like the perception is like sitting on the beach with like margaritas, and it's like that's
yeah.
paradise, and it's like that would be a living hell within like 2 weeks
Yeah.
because you
We just want to get up and do something. I want to
Yeah.
create and build.
Yeah. And I do think that that's kind of like what you're saying, like as like that desire doesn't have like a daily like place to fulfill it, it creates problems.
Yeah, like people, I talk to my buddy. He's like doing his dream job, right? He's working for Von C Brewing. He's like the head brewer. That's where I was there last night trying some new beers. It's awesome. He loves it.
Yeah.
And I try to like talk about my job the same way, and I really can't. But the sentiment is the same. And I've come to realize like I didn't dream of doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So why do I like it so much? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm getting satisfaction every day. I'm scratching that itch every day of like solving problems. Every house I go into, I'm like, unless it's like an easy job, there's always something that always a puzzle that I got to solve. And why is this doing that? And it shouldn't be. And I'm scratching that itch.
Yeah.
And he's scratching his itch. And there's that need and desire to do that. And I don't know what humanity looks like on a large scale when none of us have the ability to do that. Or the only reason to do it like doesn't actually benefit you. It's like, why would you go try and scratch that itch when you could just press a button and it's resolved? Like, what would be the driving factor to do something that you don't need to do? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying.
I just see depression.
Yeah. I mean, I think depression is like a first world country like problem, right? Like it doesn't exist when you're trying to scratch out your living.
You don't have time to be depressed, man.
Yeah. So I think that is kind of telling as to like, you would think that it would be a problem.
Some of my most depressed times in life was when I was cheating the system and I had, I wound up getting fired. I won like against like a wrongful termination. Anyway, something happened and I showed up at home. There was like 6 months worth of checks in the mail, like back. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. It was like thousands of dollars. And then I was also working at the time under the table, getting paid cash. I was working several jobs, blackmailed a boss. I walked in on him having, a male to male relationship with the owner and blackmailed him, was getting paid for not showing up to work, getting free food from the restaurant. I would just walk in with like a shopping bag or backpack and I fill up. So like I was like not working and everything was provided for me. I was such a conniving little jerk. And I do mean that. I really don't like that person. But the reason I'm bringing this up is money needs on my scale. Like I was like a little crust punk in Philly. Like my financial needs met. Mm-hmm. My relationship needs met. My food, everything was met. Mm-hmm. And I don't know of any time that I felt more depressed and wanted to kill myself more often. Like I was just miserable. And all I had on my hands was time.
Yeah.
Everything that I always wanted. I always wanted more time. And I got so much of it that there was no value to it anymore. It's kind of like, they say after a certain amount of money, it doesn't bring you joy anymore. It's like X amount past filling your needs.
Yeah. Once you can pay the bills.
Once you pay the bills, it's like, what is it doing? It's just, it actually devalues what you've always been going after.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah. I definitely feel that. Like the hardest time for me was right after I graduated high school, and then the first 2.5 years of college. I basically went from, like, in high school, I loved football. Like, that's all I wanted to do. Like, I didn't know at all what I wanted to do, like, for a profession. I just wanted to play football, right? And then I got hurt. I got scared to, like, continue pursuing it. And it was, like, 2.5 years of just, like, not having a thing to do, right? Mm-hmm. And that really changed for me. Like it was like really saddening, just not knowing like what direction you're going, and like that's not as big like what direction you're going with your life, but literally like
it's still a taste.
What do I need to do this week that matters? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then that was I ended up like changing majors, changing schools, got together with Devin, and like everything changed like once I actually just had like a relationship that mattered to me. And then like for school, when I went into engineering, like it was just like I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but it was just like I was challenged every day. Like I had a thing I had to get done that actually like required like mental capacity, like required me to learn, and like all of like the anxiety that I had and like sadness was just like gone. Dude, the worst times in my life were drilling. During that time I would work with Carl, just doing like geo jobs, and like you put the headphone,
Yeah.
like the earmuffs on, and then just for like 10 hours, just like the silence of talking to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like end every day being like, there's no point in life. This, see you tomorrow for this pointless endeavor.
That's why I can't do that job.
Dude, it's terrible just
I like
talking
doing
to
what I do.
yourself.
Yeah. Even the customers that drive me the craziest,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for them.
Yeah.
I need it.
Oh,
I
dude.
need just some change throughout the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Just drilling gray dirt as it comes out of the hole. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I don't know. I think AI is going to kill us all. Maybe not.
It's gonna give us less reason to want to not kill ourselves.
I don't think it would affect you or I. Like, I think
To a degree.
there's enough desire.
Yeah, but how's it going to affect us to watch a world crumble around us while I'm going? Like, am I still going to be comfortable leaving my house and my family? Like, what is the world going to look like?
Dude, that's going to give you a lot of purpose. You're going to need ammo and guns. No, that's a weird thing to think of, the world crumbling. I don't know, man.
How can I find joy when everybody around me is miserable? You know,
Dude,
I've really been thinking about this a lot. I gotta be honest. I'm almost sad just thinking about it. I'm like depressed about it, but I think the thing is, it's coming. Something's coming, and I don't know what it is. And every scenario I put in my mind just ends really badly.
Dude, here's what I
And
would say
nobody's
to
telling me
that is,
otherwise. That knows.
I would say, like, a weird thing with today is you can know so much more than you can affect, right? Like, you can think about, you can read infinite articles on what ChatGPT, AI, like how that's going to progress. You can read a million doomsday.
Like the information at our fingertips, you mean?
You have so much information, right? You have so much information about what like is happening globally, right? That most generations before haven't had, and it's like information overload. It's all anxiety producing, and you can't affect it. So like if you continue to input that stuff, you're just building like into you, like just like you're just giving yourself that daily dose of like helplessness and like like anxiety about like not being able to control the future. But every day you do that, there's still like your daily interactions with people, which is the only thing you can control. So it's like, I guess like whenever I get to that point, it's like you kind of have to look at it like matter of factly, like, okay, maybe that will happen. And I like physically can't do anything about it on the level that I'm thinking about it. But I can like make a relationship with one person, or I can raise like my kids, like to have like a loving father, because that's like up until like AI raises our kids, like that's one of the biggest things that impacts like who they become as a person, right? So I think it is like, it's funny because not that you should like insulate yourself from knowing that that's the way the world's going, but maybe it's more of like in knowing that that is the way the world's going, it's even more important to think about like how you're treating the people in your life, because that's all you actually can impact. Like,
I'm hearing what you're saying. The thing that I'm like turning around in my mind right now is thinking like I hear myself telling myself like, don't jump off the cliff before the tiger comes and gets you. You know what I mean? Because that tiger might be running up to go to something right next to me. Yeah, like don't jump off. Stay there till the last minute.
Don't predetermine that like AI is the end of the world, because like there also is like the human effort to like overcome, right? Like there's going to be that desire.
Oh, dude, did you ever see the movie The Mist?
No, you were telling me about the end of it though. The last time.
Dude, that popped in my head again.
It's the worst ending I've ever heard.
For those of you listening, I'm going to ruin the end of this movie. So, spoiler alert: it's been out long enough. So, eat one. So, anyway, that was rude. Yeah. So there's this mist that gets released, and it's because the government is like trying to break into other dimensions. And when they break into this other dimension, they break into this mist, and the mist covers this small town. And who knows how far. So the whole movie's about like human psychology and like what we do when society collapses. So the movie surrounds this group of people stuck in a grocery store, and you're watching like humanity crumble within this group of people. You're watching one person take this position, one person take that, and wars, and it's kind of like on a larger scale, but you're watching it on a small scale. Anyway, the man and I think his son and this woman that he's like falling for during this tragedy wind up escaping because things are going to hell, like in that place. So they wind up escaping and driving, and then they're like at their wits' ends. Like they've been driving forever. All they could see is mist. And they're just like, we're just fighting the inevitable of dying to these, there's creatures in the mist, like alien monsters, like that are ripping people apart. It's like horrific
It's
deaths.
just overcast and everybody's killing each other.
Yeah. Well, the mist, like they're able to walk freely in the mist. Like their dimensions spilled over in hours. And he comes to this point where they're just like, he looks over at the girl, looks over at the kid who's sleeping in their arms, and they have 2 bullets in this gun. And so the girl like nods her head. He puts the gun to her head, shoots her, puts the gun to the kid's head, kills his son, and then walks out to die. And the mist blows away, and in comes the cavalry, the U.S. Army.
Oh my God!
And I just that's when you go up and you grab one of their guns and finish yourself. I don't want to find the light at the end of that tunnel. But I guess the reason I brought that up is like, it was kind of a coward move to accept your fate before you found it.
Dude, I always have this conversation with Dev, because Dev's like, I'm trying to think of the exact context, but she's always like, if the world's going to end, like, why fight it? And I'm like, what?
That's like in all the zombie movies, like you go into the house, and I've seen this in several movies where it's just like the couple sitting there and the skeletons holding hands and they kill themselves in bed.
Oh,
it's like,
dude, no way.
No.
Oh, dude. I'm like, okay, I'll shoot you and then I'll go for it.
Or together. Or you first.
You first. Oh, dude, no. I don't know. I also have never been in a zombie apocalypse, so I'm speaking completely hypotheticals here, but I hope that I would try to endure.
Well, I started thinking about different scenarios people have had to do that stuff. I was thinking, and this is going to sound crazy, but this is how my mind works. But I was thinking about that movie and thinking about a little bit of what we're talking about now. And I was like, well, what are the scenarios where I would do that? And I was like, well, what if I was like in this, in Iraq or this Middle Eastern country, and like we were Christians? Would I ever denounce my faith? I don't think so, even in the face of death. I think that's something I would honorably die, but would I want my kids to honorably die?
Dude, that's...
So what do I do there? It's like, if I was thinking about the movie, and I was like, what scenario would I make that move? And I was like, well, if these people are coming in to turn children into sex slaves, and they're just going to turn my son into a horrible soldier, it's like, do I end them all and then take myself? Or do I fight and then know that I'm going to die and they're probably going to win and take my kids? It's like, these are crazy things to think about, and this is not a scenario we're living in, but on the, it's just more about the psychology of it. Like, what do I value higher? Yeah. Is really what I'm trying to find out. I'm trying to like dig deep and see like where my values really stand when push comes to shove.
Isn't it funny, like with kids? Yeah. Like I always think valuable? I always think of this. I'm like, how would I explain this to Troy? I'm like, if they told me I had to kill every person in Pennsylvania to keep you alive, I would just start blowing people away. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and just like you're saying, like that's like, like these morals or these principles that like I won't give in on. We're like, but then you're like your kid.
Yeah. Well, we say that from a place of privilege, right? There are places in the world where they could say the same sentence and it means something completely different. Like saying, like, I could say I would die for my faith. Mm-hmm. There's nobody knocking on my door trying to kill me. You know what I mean? But some places in the world they are. Yeah. So where do I really stand? I feel like we're all just it falls into the same thing of like how all men fantasize about being the savior, right? Mm-hmm. Not of humanity, but like we all fantasize about going into the burning building. I mentioned it earlier, and like saving kids, or like gunman opens fire and you're like, boom, oh dude, not today,
Every time
and
I'm in
church,
and
you save everybody.
I'm like, how agile am I with like an active shooter? Can I like? I'm always just like, I feel kind of sore. But I'm hoping that if my shoes are tied, I'll get up, I'll jump, and then I'm just running on the top of like the backs of the
I
chairs.
can't believe you just said that. I've had this exact vision.
I'm taking 2 steps. I'm diving into the aisleway, right? I'm like, go, Dev, all day, right? Like I think I've thought about that.
I've had the exact same scenario go through my mind.
At least 50% of the times that I've gone to church.
Funny. That's so funny.
And I'm always like, I have 2 cell phones. Dude, I'm gonna throw these things so hard. I'm gonna be like just flick it, hit them in the face.
Dude, I try and think like, how good is my shot with all these people around here?
Oh,
like, could I make it through this crowd of people and do a headshot? And I'm like, probably not.
Carmen, we appreciate your bravery, but you killed 4 of our congregation. You didn't hit the shooter. The shooter didn't hit anybody. You killed 4 people. Dude, that's that kid in the mall who's set up.
I don't know about this.
You don't know about that? Mm-mm. This was in 2022, towards the end of it. There was an active shooter in a mall, and this kid with like, it was like a 9mm. If it wasn't a 9, it was like not much different.
I vaguely remember. Didn't he kill the shooter?
He hit the guy 8 times out of 10 shots from 40 yards away. He like set up on like a brace that was supporting the second level, and
I did hear that. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, the guy had an AR-15 that was like opening up on like a court, like a food court. Yeah,
that's crazy. And this guy had like a carry pistol.
I'd be like,
I think about that every time I go out.
Brandon would be like, "You murdered my PA system. That's the only thing you hit. I fought for years to get this in." It falls from the ceiling, crushes 18 people.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's crazy though. But like, I guess the reason I brought that up is, are we just fantasizing and building ourselves up because do we really believe that we're that guy, or is that just something we do? Like, do other countries who are really facing that, do they fantasize about this stuff, or is this a first world issue that we have to fantasize because we're not actually living out? Like, are we truly, like, I've heard it explained that like we are warriors without a war.
Oh, dude,
we're barbarians without anything to like.
I think that all the time,
topple.
like, especially for me, like within work, it's like that feels like my thing to like compete in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think for guys, like that is like they have, like you need something that you're like striving against. And I think it looks different for, you know, like each individual person. But so I changed jobs within the last year, and I went from like 7 days a week thinking about like how I was like going to make something work, like at work, like figure it out, to where I'm like, I hope someone calls me today. And I'm like, like going crazy in my mind, because like that was like my outlet, like to actually be like, I'm doing a thing, like this is the thing I'm doing that I'm responsible for, that like I'm figuring out the problems, you know. And I feel like obviously I'm not a warrior, like that's all like phone calls, text messages, and emails. But
like, is that what we're built for though?
I think so, dude. I even there was a guy they had at church a couple weeks, maybe a couple months ago, but he threw up like, it was like the Hebrew like life cycle of like a man, and it was like in the 30s. It was like, it's your warrior time. Like you should be doing something. I think like it's in all of us. Like, and I think like even like people I see like that we know within our like, you know, our circle, it's like sometimes people who like are depressed, like I feel like it's like they're just not fighting like a fight. Like I do think like it's very like mechanical and like a physical like thing.
I don't have that. I think the only thing I fight in my life is maybe a piece of fried chicken, like trying to get every piece of meat off the bone.
Crush it every time.
I do crush. I'm pretty good with the thighs now.
Dude, I crush
down to a science.
5 bites, I'm done.
My 3 pieces, all thighs. I'm trying to perfect
no
it.
Breast.
No, but on a serious note, it's like, yeah, I don't have anything like that in my life.
Do you like want it?
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, like, before I was doing this, like this podcast, there was definitely like a lack in my life. Like there was no outlet. Like, I loved my job, like when I was doing trash, but I was like, I have no outlet. It was just like I work, and that's for these people. Yeah. And I come home and I serve these people. Yeah. And it's like, not to be selfish, but like, what am I doing for myself? And then I had somebody from my past that I knew, and she died, like suddenly. Yeah. And it freaked me out. And I remember sitting I was sitting like right down here, before the table and all set up. And I was like, God, I wonder what our plans were for next week. And I was like, shoot, like we don't stop planning because we're going to die. Like life just ends abruptly sometimes. And I was like, well, what are my plans for next week that I could do this week? And I was like, well, every week I think I'm going to start a podcast. And every week I tell myself, the market's flooded. There's no reason. You'll never find success. Like, why waste your time? Nobody's going to want to come on. Like, every excuse under the book. And I was like, well, is that why I want to do it? Do I want to do it for success? Or do I want something in my life that gives me purpose? I know it seems silly maybe to some people listening. This is a huge purpose in my life. Yeah. I love this. I spend, after this, like the next 30 days is going to be like a couple hours here and there throughout the week that adds up. That I'm devoting into just getting this right, getting clips set up, and I love every second of it, even the moments that are monotonous. Wait, was that word?
Monotonous.
Monotonous, thank you.
Eminem.
I was thinking monogamous.
This is not monogamous.
It's the Sazerac. But yeah, like I think we have to have something. So like this is that. So I don't know if that's really scratching that itch of like the barbarian side.
I don't know that everybody's a barbarian, but I do think that like everybody's not a warrior. You know what I mean? And so I mean I think I think the concept is the same. Like it makes sense to me that you're saying like this is your thing that like you're striving at that like means something to you.
Mm-hmm. And I don't always want to do it. Like sometimes I have to push myself to like go and edit. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to go play video games. I want to go to sleep. I want to watch a movie, sit in the hot tub. It's like, no, like you need to do this. And then it's because I know in the end, like payoff is worth it. Yeah.
And like the end result of this is like,
And like I value so much. Normally I don't ever talk about this stuff on the air, but like, it is huge. Joe Rogan, the one thing that stuck with me, he always said, like, he always encourages people to do it. Even though it's flooded, he's like, go do it. Yeah. And he says, they're like, well, any advice? He's like, don't stop. Yeah. And I was like, shoot. So that's why I went from like trying to do X amount of episodes a month to one episode a month, because I can commit to that. I can commit to one episode a month.
Just consistently do
it. And I can consistently do it. And I don't know if anybody cares or anybody knows. I don't even know if anybody listening knows that the first Saturday of every month is when the episode airs. Yeah. But to me, that's a deadline. I got a deadline coming up. I'm my own boss. Yeah. And I'm making no money, but that's there's no motivation other than like just a completion of a task.
Have you ever read
it means so much to me.
Chuck Palahniuk's books?
Yes, Chuck Palahniuk, right? Or maybe one of us is saying it wrong.
We'll edit it.
I think I've read
I've read a bunch of host's privilege, but
Choke, Snuff, and there was one other one I read.
Okay, so Choke, anyway. Like there's it's his roommate or his friend who he just, I forget what the climax of it is, but he just starts putting a rock in a room every day. Mm-hmm. And it ends up being some pivotal thing like in the end of the book, but it's like the concept of like, he was like, I just wanted to see that I did one thing a day that like mattered. And it was literally just like putting that rock. And it's like, you can think yourself out of like how nothing matters. But like the reality is like the human condition like needs to do a thing that creates the feeling of like it matters to the person who does it. And I think it's as simple as that. Like you don't have to make it like more or less. Like just like you're saying, like you don't have to be famous from doing this. Like if it gives you a purpose, like
who else is going to do this?
That is the purpose.
Nobody else is going to edit this. Yeah. I have to do it. That actually reminds me, there was I don't remember who was saying this, but I often think, because I've experienced this with working with people of, once you retire, you die. Yeah. Right? And I'm working with people that are always talking about retirement, but they don't want to do it. And I think like your dad, like, does he have that in his mind? Because he has to. He has to know that a lot of people retire and die. And I was thinking about that when you were saying your mom didn't want to retire. It's like, well, what's the purpose after that? Like, what do you like? You really have to have something. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm free from doing things." It's like, no. What are you going to do now? Mm-hmm. What if anything, retirement to me is a freedom from not doing anything. It's a freedom from having to do this task to doing a task that I'm doing for not a financial gain. Yeah. Free of needing some kind of compensation, but the task has to be replaced with something else. So I remember there was this guy, Buck, I worked with on the trash truck, and he was old, and he would outrun every guy and worked Saturdays with his son delivering bread from a food truck. The man just worked. And he was like in his late 60s, outrunning like 20-year-old guys on the back of this trash truck, throwing up cans over his shoulder. And I used to call him Superman. I love the man. The man, like, anyway, he was awesome. Just a rare breed of human beings. Just a hard worker, really solid dude. Always thought about everybody else. I'd come back from my route, and there'd be like a brand new pair of shoes. And he'd be like, Chase Utley gave me these shoes because we service Chase. Yeah. Chase would give us all his shoes. So I have like 5 pairs of Utley's shoes.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that I just cycle through. I had a bunch, but he would always give them to me because Chase Utley and me had the same size shoe. But I'm like, this guy just is working his butt off and thinking about me. Yeah. While other dudes, I'm coming home and there's like a sex toy suction cup to my windshield. I'm like, there's obviously
thinking of you in a different way. He was thinking of your feet.
First of all, why would you take that out of the trash? Don't throw that stuff out because that's what trash men might do to it.
When I touched this,
dude, the amount of dildos I found on my windshield at the end of the day over the years working there is innumerable. It's disgusting. And what do I do with it? I just grab my tissue and I put on somebody else's windshield because I don't want to throw it out or walk around the parking lot with it. Why is this here? Why did you dig this through the trash? Anyway, but we always used to say, why aren't you retiring? Why don't you go enjoy your life? Mm-hmm. Like, because it was sad to watch that this could be my future. I didn't want to look at him and see myself because I don't want to see myself working that hard. Yeah. And he always used to say, you stop working, you die. You stop working, you die. He never went to the doctor, never did anything. And I remember actually what killed him, but he stopped working and it was like clockwork. The man died so shortly after and nobody was surprised. I'm like, he didn't quit because he was ill. He didn't stop. His body was like hurting and he's like, I think now is the time. His family was probably pushing him. Everybody at work's always asking him. He probably thought maybe this is the time. And as soon as he lost his purpose, he died. And I always think with that, there was another guy who was asked, like, in this other country, he's like, why are you still doing this? This old man that was doing this task. And I think he was chopping wood or something. He's like, if I don't do it, who will? Mm-hmm. That's purpose.
Yeah.
And this man's like in his 90s doing this physical labor. And that's why we see in these other countries, these people, we think we're in America, we're the first world country. We know we have the top people for nutritionists and food and all this stuff. And it's like, well, why are we dying so much sooner than these people that have nothing? Why is our depression rate so high when these people are, on whatever scale they're having this metric done on? Is like these are the happiest people and they're the poorest people. It's because they are constantly having this drive and this need to survive, this purpose, and not to keep going back to AI, but things being replaced is scary to me because we're already there now and we have purpose. Yeah. But taking even more of that away from us, I'm scared for the next generation.
I think to some extent, you gotta have some faith for the AI. You're not gonna figure it out. I mean, that's.
Well, we also look at end times, right? End times, they say what's right is wrong, what's wrong is right. Things will be flipped on their heads. There's going to be wars and rumors of war. There will be, turmoil in the clouds. What does it say about that? Storms and I just picture a planet revolting. And what is everything on the news is exactly to like end times. And I think, am I making it that? Or obviously every day is closer, right? And I don't want to react. I don't want to jump off the cliff soon. And that's not what I'm, pushing for. But I guess where I'm heading is like, what more can I do?
Dude, I think of, there's a LinkedIn post that kind of covered it. But if you think of like my grandfather, he was born in the 1920s. So he's born like 1920s, 1930s, the Great Depression.
The greatest generation.
1939 through 1945, World War II. You come out of that, you go into the Korean War. You go into the Vietnam War. There was some serious like economic depression right in the 70s. I think of Dev's parents talking about the first mortgage that they had for the mortgage they had for the first house they bought was 11% interest. It's like sometimes I think we get too grandiose. Like it's like things are changing for sure. But I just feel like sometimes when we say like this is the end, you know what I mean? Like it get like too apathetic or you get too like morose about it. And it's like, I don't know. Here's my aside to that is I listened to Shapiro for like a year straight, and I was like, I'm done, because all that I've gotten out of this is like I'm aggravated every day when I listen to it, and I feel like I should buy gold and be scared of black people. That's it. That's all I've gotten out of this.
Sure, the black people. You're the third person to tell me this week from listening to Shapiro and others.
But it's like, dude, it's like
literally the third person in the past like 2 days.
Oh man, I gotta get taller. But it's like,
if you pull it down,
it doesn't match real life.
Sorry, I gotta get these replaced. There we go.
But you know what I mean? Like it doesn't match. Like I listen to that and it's like, dude, like things are bad. They're getting worse. People aren't being held accountable. Buy gold. And then it's just like, I'm like in an airport talking to people and they're all nice to me. Like we're all getting on the plane. Nobody's like doing weird things to each other. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes I think like you get so big, like you take like these stories from like New York City and you make it the world, or you make it just not the world, but the United States. And it's like, I don't know, like it's also a time that no man's supposed to know. So like maybe it's less important to try and call it than it is to like try and be the person that you can be.
Yeah. I just came off of a hiatus from listening to all that stuff. So I'm back in it now.
You are?
At a better mental place.
Yeah.
I do that every couple months. I'll stop listening and I'll just listen to like just comedians podcasts.
Yeah.
And I'm now starting to get back into like Tim Pool and not Ben Shapiro I've been listening to lately. With the beard. He's still from Daily Wire.
Matt Walsh.
I've been getting more into him. It's a little bit more lighthearted, but I can't do too much. Otherwise, it's like Adam was saying the same thing. It's like this repetitive cycle of everybody's opinion on the same thing. But the first time I heard what you were just saying was conveyed was from a comedian. I forget who it was, but he was like, I turn on the news and watching all this stuff. And this was like back in 2016, 2018 area. And he was like, yeah, everything seems crazy. And he's like, but then I opened up my front door and the birds were chirping and the sun was shining.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's beautiful. And I kind of signed on to that for a while, but then I heard counter arguments, and I think it's somewhere in between, because yes, it is like that, but there is something moving. And the reason why these stories are sounding worse and worse, I mean, they're real stories. They are happening. And that stuff does spread. I remember when we were kids, we heard about the book, I forget what it was. It was like Tommy has two mommies or Tommy has two daddies. And that was like, everybody was afraid. And it's like, well, that's happening out in California.
Destroyers of nations. Tommy has
now,
two mommies.
Fast forward 15 years. Half of the kids' book sections in Target and Walmart are all about gender, affirming and gay and this and that. It's like, I don't have an issue with these people, but why are we pushing it onto children? Like, you didn't push straight sex. I don't want straight sex pushed onto kids.
Yeah.
I don't want any of this stuff. I just want them to live their lives and be free while they can.
His mommy. Yeah. I think in that, like one thing to quote the person I just said that you shouldn't listen to, but Shapiro was saying like the difference between the left and the right is like when the right wins an election, they're like, cool, we did it. Like, let's go on with life.
I heard him say this, yeah.
And then like the Democrats like never stop, right? And I do think there's a weird, there's a book that Tom had like passed my way. It's I forget what it's called, but like a brief synopsis of history. It's by Will and Ariel Durant.
It's the two people, right? I was going to bring that up.
Husband and wife.
I just pulled it. Yeah.
But it's like his belief in God decreases, belief in it was either communism or the government increases, and it's like I think there's something there as far as like everybody needs an ideology, right? And I would say the right's more religious on average, and I think that bears out like in statistics as far as like church going or like religion attending members. Yeah.
That book is called The History of the World. I just grabbed it actually a couple hours before you came, and I was like, I think I need to go back and read this again. It puts everything in perspective.
My other favorite quote of that, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's like, the intellect of the few will always be outdone by the fertility of the simple. And I'm like, that's good to know that I'm part of the simple.
Yeah.
I'm making too many babies for these smart people to deal with. Can't keep up with me.
Are you guys going any further?
I hope to God not. I'm always like, can I get clipped? And Dev's like, if you want to.
Dude, there's been a few times I've been at your house and like I'll see one kid And then I'll see another one. I'm like, oh, I forgot they got more. And there's,
So
I look in the other room. I'm like, oh, they got a lot of kids.
They're always crying.
It's awesome though, man. Like you know. Anyway, you're doing it.
Do the 3 times.
Yeah.
3 times 3 babies. Yeah. It's so what happens is every 2 years Dev forgets what it's like to be pregnant, and she's like, we could have another one. And I'm like, well, if you tell me to.
Jenny's on that right now. I want to adopt, dude.
I'm a faithful soldier. You tell me to get you pregnant, I'll do it.
I'll make this sacrifice.
Another $250,000 of the train. Just burying myself.
It seems worth it though, man. Would you ever think like you'd think like that?
That's
I mean, you just stop caring. It's like the value of that human life that you get to be a part of is worth more than anything else that you think is before it.
wait. So, pirating off of another podcast I was listening to, but this guy was saying he was talking. He has like 5 kids, and the reason he did it is he was talking to someone who's like very successful and had 2 kids. And he was like, do you think 2 kids was the right number? And he's like, I regret it. And he's like, why? And he said, because right when I got good at being a parent, I stopped having kids. Like, in what other aspect of life do you stop at something right when you've become good at it? I do think, like, my personal opinion is, like, I think, like, for like my situation, I think the right thing to do would be like if I was really looking like the world is like my onus, you know, like to try and improve it. I do think adoption is like you got to look at that and be like, there's so many kids who just need like a family, and like as horribly insufficient as we are as a family, like we're a lot better than nothing. Or like we're a lot better than a lot of the alternatives. And I think that that's at least how I feel. And I think that kind of, you know, that's easy for me to say. Like I'm not the primary like caregiver. You know, like that's something like for Dev, you know, where it's like, you know, like taking on like that's a very foreign thing, you know, to think about where it's like
just kind of weird. I'm thinking about that right now for the first time.
Yeah. And I like, you'll never know what it's like
different
to be a mom, but like, it makes sense that like bearing a child, having the child, like it's so natural, like that it's theirs, you know, whereas just like adopting a child that they haven't had that process with, it's scary, right? Like, and they don't have like,
I think of it like as, all right, as me as a dad, I don't know how your experience was, but when they handed me Thatcher when he was first born, and I'm sorry, Thatcher, if you're in the future listening to this, but I looked at him and I just thought, what is this? Like, this is like he looked gross. I didn't love him.
Oh, dude.
Like I thought I was gonna have this moment that I locked eyes with him and like I was just gonna be like, I'll love you till the day I die. And I looked at him and he was slimy and gross and his head was deformed, and I was like, he looks like an alien. And they said, Dad, do you want to come over and take a photo? And I couldn't even say no. I just shook my head like this. Came out. And
have you heard what I said?
Wow.
They handed him over and like same thing. He had a normal birth, but like his head was like oblong. And I was like, excuse me, Mr. Doctor, does he have a brain deformity? And they were like, no, he just came down the vaginal canal. That's how they fit out. Their brain, like the skull is in separate pieces and it's flexible. I was like,
I was grossed out.
I didn't know. I just saw a lot happen right now. You're like, dude, 2 a.m., the first night that Troy was born, they wheeled him in for Dev to feed him. And I was just laying on that plastic couch, and I remember it. I can still see them wheeling him in, and the only thought in my head was, I don't want to do this. Like, dude, get me out. Get me out of this.
I believe it. Dude, when Thatcher was born, my first thought wasn't to run, but my first thought was, oh, I see how guys can leave. I see how you could just, because I used to always think, how could you leave? How could you? And the more Jenny would progress in her pregnancy, I just kept finding this weird disdain towards fatherless, or you know, people that left their kids. The moment I saw Thatcher, I thought, I get it. Okay, I get it.
I'm not leaving. I'm better than that, but I don't.
Yeah, it was like, I realized, and I started wondering, like, is something wrong with me? Because everybody told me this magical moment was going to happen. I thought, like, you know, I really thought, like, is something wrong with me? Like, am I a psychopath? Do I have this ability? And I was like, I'm just going to choose to love him. And I realized that was it. Is that you choose to take on this responsibility. And then through that, I have gained a love that surpasses anything I thought was possible.
Yeah.
You know, and the same thing with Harley. Like, when she came out, it wasn't any different. I was just like, I choose to be your dad. I choose to be there for you every day. And that's it. I made a choice, and now I can't pull myself away from them. They're everything to me.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with any relationship. It's the same thing, you know, with our wives. You know, you choose to love daily, or you don't.
Yeah.
Right. But I think with adoption, I think humans are capable of that. So what I think, because Jenny's brought that up about but I don't know the other side of it. I don't know what it's like to grow this child and then hold them. So I'm assuming that's different.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine that women also have the ability, just like Jenny has the ability to love me. I don't know why, but she does, right? Like, I'm disgusting. I'm a slob, and she loves me. And I think that if we brought a child into this home that needed a mom, if we chose to be mom and dad to this child, that love follows, and that attachment will be the same.
Yeah.
I think there's no difference. But it's just the uncertainty, you know, but I think that uncertainty is worth jumping over because I think that the outcome will be the same.
Yeah, I agree. It's like knowing the caliber of person they are, like, it's going to work out just fine, but it's hard to be not the person who's going to have to deal with the majority of it. And be like, you'll be fine. I'm going to make an executive decision here, give you a baby that's not yours.
Right. I mean, the extent of my thought on adoption is like, I just look around, like every kid is a sacrifice, right? No matter how much money you're making is some level of sacrifice. So I look around and I think, what is more valuable around here than a human life?
Yeah.
And there's nothing. So like, I'm willing to give up everything I have.
Yeah.
To bring on, like, whatever it takes to fight. I mean, that's financial, but like for the financial end of it, there's nothing more valuable than bringing another kid in this family.
Yeah.
To me.
No, I that's what, like, and like, that's the scope that like you can reasonably impact the world, right?
Yeah. But that's, I mean, as a man, but that's what I'm saying. That's different from the woman's perspective. I didn't even think about that until you said it. Like, for me, that's the extent of me is like, I'm willing to give up X, Y, and Z, up to everything I have for this child, and I'm not even, you know, and I'm working.
There's something with like the relationship that like Dev has with like the boys that like I just don't like, and I think that's kind of like what you're getting at. It's where it's like, you know, like you go off to work every day. Obviously Jenny does too, right? But like there's like mom holds like such a different construct to them. Like,
do your kids let you know that there's a difference? Because my kids remind me all the time.
It's just sometimes they'll be like, when's mom coming home?
Yeah. I ask them, do you miss me when I'm at work? Oh yeah, of course. I'm like, yeah, I don't buy it for a second, because you said about your mother very differently than you just said that about me.
I do think though, like, and this is very like self-supporting, like I do think that there's supposed to be like the mom who's like comfort, like safety, and then I think there's like the dad who's like security, but also like accountability, like independence, discipline. So it's weird. Like, I'm super good with that. I'm all good at holding everybody accountable and disciplining everyone. But you definitely see where like, you know, if I say something, they're like, man, where's mom? Like, she's so much better to deal with than you. Like, I'm like, the answer's no, because it's always going to be no. And they're like, yeah, but like, if I'm nice to her, she'll probably say yes. And like, it'll be so much more fun.
The way I look at it, like my role in their life, and this is very rudimentary, but I look at my role for Thatcher is I want to display the man that I want him to grow into being. And then anything that I discipline him further than what I do is the improvements of myself that I can't make at this point in my life, I want him to make. Yeah. And then for Harley, I want to do the same thing, but not as the man I want her to become, but as the man I want her to be attracted to.
That's somebody had said that to me. I think like one of our youth leaders. It was like, if there's somebody that like you're like looking to be in a relationship with, look at what their relationship is with, like if it's a girl with their dad, right? Or if it was a boy, like their relationship with their mom, because like that's what they're going to expect of like their significant other. So it is interesting. Like I will say, and I do think that that's kind of played out like with Dev, like her dad's like so supportive, like so like gentle, and like that's what she's looking for. And then I'm always like, Well, my name's not Bill Waymeyer.
Dude, I think the same thing because Jenny's dad is so gentle and docile, but he's also at a different place in his life.
Yeah.
And I think, like, where did I show up?
I'm like, your dad had you when he was 40.
You know, we always joke with Adam because, like, a woman grows up to marry her father.
Yeah.
And Christy and I you have to spend more time with us. We're identical.
Tom Wakeler.
We're identical. No, I tell Adam all the time, like, Adam grew up to marry me.
The girl version.
He married me, not her father. Or not, you know what I mean? Like, instead of him marrying his mom, he married me.
Yeah.
We spent too much time in the same room together, and he just...
He had to find the go.
I imprinted on him.
That's amazing.
Sorry, Adam. It's true, though.
It's like, she doesn't have a beard, but outside of that, she's perfect.
She's the perfect female specimen of myself. Congratulations, Adam. You've done it.
That's amazing.
That's true, but we're always joking about that. And we have the exact same birthday.
You do?
Yeah, September 5th.
Dude, I'm so bad at birthdays.
Yeah, I only remember hers because it's the same as mine. Dude, do you ever forget your kids?
Yes.
Okay, you know when I really put myself in it is when Harley was sick.
Okay.
And I had to go to the pharmacy. And they're like, all right, name and birthday. I was like, Harley Vasaturo. And I just threw out a fake date just because I was so embarrassed.
July 4th.
I was like, it'll work. So I said I had the right month. I was like, November, whatever. And they were like, yeah, it's not coming up. I'm like, that's really weird. And I'm sitting there like, I'm in the drive-thru, so I'm secretly scrolling through my Instagram to the photo of her birth that I posted. And I was like, 6.
There it is.
Yeah, and I was like, this is the date. I actually don't even want to say it out loud because I think the date in my head is wrong again.
No.
I don't care. I love them to death.
That's
I think it's the 6th. I might have just buried myself.
November 6th. Yeah, Troy's birthday
5th.
to me, if I said it out loud, the first thought, it's always December 26th. Pretty sure it's December 28th. And then Max, I'm always like, I think it's 5/19. And then Graham, I'm like, I think it's 5. But I forgot Graham's middle name for a while. It's my name. Like, his middle name's Doug. And people are like, what's his middle name? I was like, I have no idea. Like, it's your name.
Well, it's also like you don't call him that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't think about it. It's like, how old is he? Because that's how many years it's been since I thought of that. I have no idea.
Right. Oh, dude.
It's hard. I
always talk to people, too. It's like, it's so funny, like, the first, like, literally with Graham, there's, like, I have vivid memories. I don't have them with Max. I don't know if he was just easier or if, like, I was so tired then that I don't remember him. I remember, like, the first week we had Troy, him just, like, screaming at me changing a diaper at, like, 1 a.m., and I just put my finger on his mouth. I was like, I'm not doing this right now. And I remember changing him another time where I was like, what's... I wear glasses, like, at night, right? And I'm changing them, and, like, something's hitting my face. I'm like, what's hitting my face?
No.
Just pissing all over my face. But he's hitting me in the glasses. And then Graham...
Oh, I forgot about those days.
Dude, he had real bad stomach issues when he was first born, and I just remember like me looking at Dad and be like, "What do you want? He's a trash baby. Like, what do you want from me right now?" And it's like, now I'm like, I love this guy. Look at him. He's a beautiful boy. It's just so fun to be around. It's just like those first couple months. It's like nothing should be held against you. You get that kid through like, the first couple months.
Dude, Thatcher peed right in my mouth, and it reminded me of my childhood when I was sitting next to the changing table. My little brother peed and it arched right over, and I looked up and it went right in my mouth.
Oh. Catching peas since 1990.
93.
93.
Yeah.
I forgot Glenn's younger than me.
What's that? Oh, that he's younger, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, he's doing well. Him and Anna, dude, I'm so proud of them.
Yeah.
Dude, you know, that's a weird thing. We'll talk about that. So, watching Anna on TV is bizarre.
Oh, yeah, because she's on a show, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you guys got to go out and watch if you're listening. Dear Edward on Apple TV. It's crazy. She's like blowing up. She went from the lead in 6 on Broadway to now she's doing the lead in Liza Minnelli's part from New York, New York. That's launching like this month. And she's on one of the biggest shows on on Apple TV. And I'm like, this is just like their world is just changing. I'm like so proud of them. I'm excited, but it's so weird watching the show and like trying to take myself out of being a family member and just like enjoying it. But it's funny. We called the kids in to watch the trailer, and she has, she's in a relationship with another man in the show.
Mad.
So we call the kids and come here, look, we're gonna watch your aunt. Like she's on TV. So we pop on the trailer. This was like a couple months ago, and she like kisses a guy in the trailer like twice. And as it ended, like Jenny and I were just staring at each other like, oh, we should have watched this first. Like Thatcher's just staring off and we're like, what'd you think? He goes, and just like walks away. And I'm like, I think we just did something to them. I don't know what it is, but something just happened because they know that wasn't Uncle Glenn. For a little bit.
They're like, are they not married anymore?
Oh, but
they're gonna
cool.
be so salty there. Next time they see her. You got some explaining.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah, who was that?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah, but that's been really cool.
Yeah,
Watching that, it's wild.
That's
yeah. I'm actually going up soon. I'm excited to see New York. I don't know. I haven't planned it out yet, but I'm sure Jenny will go up pretty soon.
And that's Broadway?
Broadway, yeah. So she's doing them simultaneously.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I feel like an insider now.
Yeah. That's so cool. It's like, I mean, yeah. That
I'm just honestly, I'm genuinely just so ecstatic for them. I'm so happy for them.
Yeah.
The things are working out, and she's doing good.
Yeah.
Dude, there's this video. Actually, do you care if I play it? Dude, I think this is public now. I forget where it got sent to me on. But it's from New York, and I'm just like listening to her. It's funny. Everybody has that like person that has a star quality, in quotations, in their friend group, or somebody that's like really talented, like the guy who got the lead in the high school play, and you're like, oh, you're going places, and then you find a room full of those people, and it's like, oh, that guy kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Anna always was like, you looked at her and it wasn't the best in the room. It was like the best you'd seen, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not really surprised in what she's done, but sorry, I'm like trying to talk while looking this up. But hearing her talk or hearing her sing, watching her perform, it's just like blowing my mind. Here it is. This is like a little clip from. Oh, I'm on the wrong account. Sorry.
Limu.
What's that?
Limu.
What's Limu? What's that?
Liberty Mutual.
Yeah, what did you say?
Emu and Doug.
Emu and Doug?
Oh,
I'm so confused.
I'll just talk about AI and our imminent demise while you look for it. Don't worry.
This is a 1-minute clip, but just like hearing her, it's so crazy.
Wow.
Dude, it's just like
That's wild.
crazy. Anyway, I won't watch the but anyway, I'm bragging about her a little bit because I'm so proud of her. But I'm so excited to see that. Anybody listen, if you're like any bit into that, Anna Uzzelli, New York, hitting Broadway, I think at the end of the month.
Killing
in New York, dude. It's like one of the biggest theaters too. So it's like
Yeah.
big time, dude. I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's just crazy how quick, and like talking to them about behind the scenes stuff. It's just interesting. Like it's like different worlds, and it starts. And I'm not trashing anything like that. It's just like I'm always interested in like human psychology and like what it's like and like the statuses and how that changes, and like listening to just like things that are changing around them. It's so interesting how humans are. And to a degree, I'm like fighting this like almost nihilistic view of the world to where like sometimes I'll go and I'll look at something and I'm like, this is amazing. Like human beings created this. And other days I look and I'm like, is that the best you can do? Because I'm pretty sure like the sun rising is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And that was created by the creator. And it's like, I get this, sometimes I'll get in that mode where I'm like, there's nothing more beautiful and great than what God has created. And we're just trying to mimic that in all these little ways. And like, I can get caught up in it. But the second I look at like a sunset, I just don't care about ChatGPT. I don't care about AI.
Oh,
it's like,
dude.
What else is out there? And it makes me think that like the best we have to offer is, it's like a McRib.
Dude, my
Like,
my favorite times at work, whenever like it's been different now at the current employer, but like a job walk, like it's
What's
just
that?
like I'll go look at a job, like where
Oh,
there's going
gotcha,
to be a
gotcha.
new transmission line. It's just like off in the mountains. Mm-hmm. That's typically where it is. Like, I mean, a lot of jobs too are also like in like downtown areas where like I don't get this feeling, but like that's my favorite, dude. Like you get out into just like the forest or like a lot of the jobs I've been looking at now, like it's like Nevada or, you know, like Idaho, just like mountains, and you're just like the beauty, like you, and it's funny. Actually, this time, Bob Gag, I did say this. Like, you take a picture because you're like, this is so beautiful. Like, I need to capture this, and like the picture is just like
It's never there.
dog shit.
Yeah.
You're like I'm looking at it, and I take this picture, and this is not like what I'm seeing. And it's like, dude, natural beauty. Like when you get out into just like landscapes that have not been altered by like mankind. It's just amazing.
It's
like,
breathtaking, man.
And like you could just sit there and like hear nothing. Like just not hear like the sound of like cars or people or anything. It's the most beautiful thing in the world.
Yeah. I don't know if I explained it right, but what I was trying to say too is like that versus like, and not to crap on like what we have, but at the same time, it's like they're obviously moving up and they're seeing like what there is to offer. So I started really thinking of like, what's the greatest thing like status can get you? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's really not that far off from what we already have. It's like the biggest difference I see between what I have now and like the top is just like looking at a sunrise or like you were saying, like a landscape that's just beautiful, sitting at a lake and just listening to like the little ripples.
Dude,
It's beautiful.
Rogan talked about that a lot, where it's like when you make more money, like it just causes like more stress. Like there's more like you're more vulnerabilities or like more desire to protect what you have.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you have like further to fall.
Yeah.
Right? So like you fight harder to keep what you have.
Can you imagine being Warren Buffett and hearing like that you just had a loss, even though it's unrecognized, of like billions of dollars and you just shrug it off?
Yeah, I feel like he's like been around for so long where he's just like
It's just crazy.
yeah, that's
What's
the thing
that
though,
take
like
to truly believe what you're saying?
because he's like 90 something, right?
He's up there. I don't know. Looks like he's 90.
There are people too, like where like even in my industry, like you start like you've been through something and like it happens again, like a similar situation. You're like, I've been here before. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And
It's
like,
just, it looks different, but I know what this is.
different place, different people, but like I know where I'm standing.
Yeah.
I bet like at
That's
that
a
point
weird
for
feeling,
him, like
man.
there's probably so few instances where he's like, I've never experienced this before. You know what I mean?
Actually, back a couple episodes ago, when Adam and Brandon were on, when we were talking about fatherhood, there was something that's been haunting me that I said, not haunting me, but like I can't get it out of my mind. We were talking about how each generation tries to teach the next generation, and we dismiss it until we find out we should have listened to them sooner. And we had said with AI and the things that are coming, we're almost at the edge of this cliff where this generation is trying to tell us what's coming, but it's so different what we're facing that I almost dismiss the past generation. And then I think back on books like what you just said, and then like books like History of the World. And I'm like, no, I think I just fell into the same trap again. I think I just dismissed it because I think, you know, I'm like, I want to go on this path that's like never been taken before at any means necessary, even dismissing people who are holding out maps and trying to help me and guide me.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I want the harder way because I want to do it myself. It's like, you're just going to go down a path that a million people have already gone down, and it sucks, and we're trying to help you.
I do feel like
You're not different. You're not special.
I do feel like the psychology or like the philosophy hasn't changed. I think
Right? Yeah, like the mindset is really what you take on your journey.
I think like a lot of what's happening now is like 17th century France. Like they've known about this like postmodern thought or like all that. Like it's not new. Like
I don't.
all.
What are you referencing with 17th century France? Because French is like French fries. Oh, okay. Like I don't know anything about them other than
I do think
Paris smells.
Dude, Tom gave me a book. I think it was a Francis Schaeffer book.
What else did he write? That sounds really familiar.
Yeah, dude, just a lot of like the
Was that like The Body Keeps the Count or something?
No, that's The Body Keeps the Score. That's like a Kierkegaard or something.
He told me about one
like,
book from him that I have upstairs.
Oh, it's like what now? So what now?
What if?
No.
What then shall we do?
Yes, it's what then shall we do?
I looked at it with the history book today.
But if you read that,
I haven't read it yet.
So I'll say like the one thing that I remember off the bat is like a lot of like if you listen to like Joe Rogan or like all of the people are on his thing, it'll be like, you know, like I think we all just need to do mushrooms and like we'll become like aware of like existence and what it really means. That's like thoughts from like the 60s and 70s, like or the 50s into the 60s. Like it's all been thought before. And then like more so than that, like going back to, it may not be France, but it is literally back to like the 1700s. I thought you were referencing
something specifically, my bad.
I am if I had read it more recently. There was more aware at the moment. But like a lot of the thought process, just like the materialistic nature, I'm trying to think of exactly of what the exact thought was, but just a lot of it goes to the thoughts that they had before. Just I'm trying to think of. I'm going to blank here. Where it's so like that book, like what had happened was, so originally it was like, I guess in the context of that book, it was like you read the Bible because Francis Schaeffer is a Christian, right? So you read that and it's like, you read the Bible, that's the truth. You don't extrapolate off of it. Like that is what the truth is. You read it, you understand like what it's saying, and you don't bring like an outside influence on it. And then like when you got into, I believe they like just kind of like the delineation was like Immanuel Kant, where they went into like Greek thought of like human reason, like humanity, like your brain can elucidate like the truth. Like you can think logically and come up with like what truth is. They started to say like, okay, like you read the Bible and like it says things, but then you say like, what does that really mean? And you don't like rely on just the text to tell you what it's saying. You start using like what logic would tell you. And it's just kind of like a progression from there to where it's like, there is like basically like the brain can like create reality, like or determine it. But I think what he said, like when he went to like the 60s and the 70s, is like when you get away from the belief in God, it was like basically like it becomes personal peace and affluence, which I do think, and like that was like the mushrooms like stuff. Like I think the Jesus revolution kind of captured.
I was
like
thinking about that when you were saying this.
That thought process, but
because what did he say? He's like, we thought acid was going to save the world. He's like, it was a lie.
Yeah. And he kind of goes into that in the book. And I do think that's, it's kind of funny because even Tim Keller, like, talked about it, like, humanism. I think he was saying, like, I'm going to miss what the source thought of it was, but just like it doesn't lead to like the thought of like humanism, like we should like benefit humanity, like we shouldn't be selfish off like this, like outside of like the context of there being a God, like saying like it's not sure like that's like where logic would lead you, but like it's a lot of that kind of playing into like thinking like utopias through like the use of drugs, like we'll all like learn to like live together like harmoniously. It's just funny to see, like it's been thought before. Yeah, I mean that's there's nothing new under the sun is the phrase I always go back to. Yeah, it's interesting. It keeps coming back. There's have you ever heard of Jake Wesley Rogers? No. Actually, I'm going to switch the subject a little bit because I wanted to talk to you about something. So Jake Wesley Rogers is a very openly gay, like 6 foot tall, very talented musician or singer.
who I had the great privilege of going with. What's that girl's name from Titanic? She was actually in this show.
Kate Winslet?
Yeah, I think she was in the crowd. It was like he had hit his big break on like the internet. Like he blew up.
Yeah.
But he sold tickets to people like for these tiny venues before he blew up. So like at the start of his
really?
Yeah, so like Glenn and I are going to this dive bar to watch this guy who's like one of the biggest things on like the internet at the moment.
Really?
And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, why did he not up this venue? Like he's just staying true to all these. So I'm like hanging on the stage, like he's dripping sweat on us and like talking with us after the show and hanging out. I'm like, this is amazing. And anyway, I like, he's got this quality to him that just shines through. Like, and they call it star quality, whatever. I think it's just like he's living his best life at the moment, and I'm just feeding off of the energy that he's portraying because it's genuine, and he hasn't been hurt yet by this. It's like he's just, it is what it is, genuine, right?
Yeah.
And I crave that. The reason I want to bring that up because anyway, I was thinking about him with Anything New Under the Sun. He talks about. He was a Christian. He grew up as a Christian. So he has like songs that reference the Bible a lot. And he talks about like his challenge of like being this gay man while also still loving God and then also maybe not knowing if any of it was true and this and that. Anyway, he's very, very open book in his music. And when I tell you I love his music, like I have like one of the few pieces of art I have in my house is like I had an artist design like this spiral of his lyrics to the song Pluto, and I had him sign it. And anyway, I like love it. I really love it. But it talks about nothing new under the sun. His perspective was more like talking back and like it was blasphemous, but it was like talking about like in Noah's Ark that, you know, somewhere in one of those stables was like two guys that were just like learning to love. And he's like, so what I'm doing here, even though it's like new for me, he's like, there's nothing new under the sun. Like this has all been done before. And anyway, even though I like don't agree with that, that specific sentiment, it got me on the cycle over the past like year or two, thinking about nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
And all the stuff has been done before. Anyway, I'm really going on a wrong tangent here. Let me bring it back.
You're saving me from not remembering any of the dates of what I just said. So don't feel bad. I'll enjoy it. So,
of any of the dates? Did I mess you? Oh, no. Did I mess you up too much?
No,
sorry.
Dude,
you said something I didn't want to forget. I guess I don't really know how to start this conversation. As a Christian,
two guys in the stable.
No. Oh, I have a candle lit. I don't know why that made me think of it. Setting the mood. Oh. One time I had this girl come over I was not interested in, and my room smelled like just straight BO. So like nothing was happening. But I ran into the room and lit a candle, and she comes in, she goes, "Oh, did you light a candle for me?" And I was like, "No." My room smelled. I just always light candles. Seducing you. No, I literally was just like, "Damn, my room smells. I'm embarrassed." No, you're disgusting. No, she's a sweet girl. Just wasn't the situation. Anyway, Bob talked a couple weeks ago. Gaglione talked about when he. Did you hear him talking about when he got rid of his rock and roll music? I've heard him talk about it. Yeah, he's like, I got rid of all these things. Like when he became a Christian, he's like, I threw out all these vinyl records. And he's like, the next night I went out to, this Bible study, and some guy was like, oh yeah, I got tickets to the Rolling Stones or whatever it was. And he goes, darn it, I just threw out, do I need to go dumpster diving and get all that stuff back? But anyway, I started to think because my sister and her husband, I would think, are far more on the legalistic side of things, and like they cut everything out. And I see the benefits of that, and I see the dangers that I introduce into my family and my home by not having that. But it's like a give and take, right? Yeah. So I started thinking about people like Jake who stand up vocally and loudly for things that I am adamantly against morally and as a Christian. Yeah. And yet I have a love for them, like as a human being. And I heard Matt Walsh say this, and this is what got me on this topic, is Matt Walsh said something about like he was talking about Dylan Mulvaney, like all that controversy right now where he talked about him being weird and fake. And I remember listening to that and thinking that was a little harsh, but I kind of get where he's coming from. And he's coming out afterwards saying like, this is a war of the minds and morale. Like you have to, this man is an enemy to not him as he's not an enemy that you need to destroy, but like the enemy is that he is pushing an agenda that you claim to stand against. So why are you defending him? He said, if you're defending him and saying you're conservative, because all these people were reaching out to him saying like this was wrong. He goes, if you're doing that, maybe you're too far gone. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, am I too far gone? Or, because just because he's got a big platform doesn't mean he's right.
Yeah.
And doing that kind of thing every day, you're very closed-minded and ultra focused on what you're doing. So I tried to step out of it and think, am I wrong for loving people like that? Am I wrong for having compassion for trans people? Am I wrong for not hating them? Like, I know the answer to that, but it's like, what's the deeper level of that? Like, I remember like moments that really stuck out to me. I went to a Ted Cruz rally back in, was that 2018? And I remember we come out and like, not at a rally. He was like visiting some restaurant, and we got in and we got seats and got to see him and got a picture with him. And I was like really rooting for him at the time.
Was it before he grew a beard?
This is before, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, this was baby Ted. So I come outside, and there's this trans kid, like young kid, maybe 18, 19 years old, and he's shaking while holding up a sign about trans rights alone. And all I thought was, that's the bravest kid here. That's the bravest person in this crowd.
Yeah.
I can't believe he's standing there. And I went up and I said, hey, I said, this might sound crazy. I said, I just got to tell you, just looking at you, like I said something along the lines, paraphrasing. I was like, I couldn't love you as a human being more than I do right now watching you. I was like, you are so brave, not for what you're standing for, but the fact that you're out here willing to stand against what you think is against these people, and you showed up anyway. I said, but what I want to tell you is that nobody here wants to hurt you. I said, so I see you shaking. I said, there's no reason to be afraid. I said, that's the true courage. The courage that you chose to stand up here. I said, I also tried to explain, like, it was courageous to do that, but the fear you thought, or the threat you thought was here, really isn't here. Like, these people love you, and I said, I want to be the first one to like extend an olive branch. And I said, is it okay if I hug you? And I gave him the biggest hug, and I had a little conversation with him. Anyway,
he received it well.
So well. I think about that guy all the time. Like, really often. I like his face is just like burned into my memory, and he's somebody that I go back to whenever a little bit of hatred might come through. I'm like, no, like that's not what this is about. I could hate the act, hate the sin, right, and not the sinner. And sometimes I wonder, like, all right, maybe listening to Jake's music is going to debase me a bit, and I can take that argument in. I could take that criticism, but like, at what point do we dismiss this whole generation of people that are so morally opposed to ours that we let them slip through the cracks? And this goes back to the Jesus Revolution, where, look at the change that was made to an entire country because, one group of people, I don't know if it was just one man, Chuck, but I'm sure there's more people, but because one group of people decided to say, we're going to let these people in. We're going to love them where they're at. We're not going to accept the craziness, but we're going to love them where they're at. And show them kindness. It's like, well, what does that look like today? I don't know. I think it takes people like, for me, it's Jake and that guy at the Ted Cruz thing. But I think we all have somebody that we can, if we gave them enough time, I'm not saying we drink the Kool-Aid, but we can learn to love them as a human being, And I think that if we had enough time to deal with every enemy or opposing somebody of opposition, I think we'd fall in the same place. I think we can learn to hate what they're saying, but love them. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know. That's just a thought thing going through my head. What do you think? As a Christian.
Dev just sent me a video today, and it was in the context of a guy talking about like trying to correct his 2-year-old. And so what he did was he filled a cup of water and he put dirt in it. And then he was like saying like when his kid acts out, when his kid like screams, when his kid doesn't listen. And he was going through this thing where like he was trying to like pull out like the dirt, right? And like the dirt like had just like spread through the water and was diluted and like he couldn't get it out, right? And he was like, or like, here's me, like when I just like love my kid, and he took like a gallon of water and just started pouring it into the cup, and like it just like dispersed the dirt, right? Like, went to the bottom of the cup, filled it up, and pushed out all of like the dirt that was in it. And I feel like I get like my natural inclination is like there's no love without truth, right? And I do think that there's a lie that happens when like you just like you're like I accept everything, right?
And like love is love.
Yeah. And I feel like that kind of goes toward, like, I think my big thing is like what I've kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where it's like I stopped listening to Shapiro. It's like I don't think they can fix anything. Like, I think that's just a money making scheme. Like, I think a lot of them have like good intentions, and I think they do other things that are like well intentioned. But I think like you can't change anything by a podcast that goes out to like 100,000 or maybe 1,000,000 people, right? So like the thing that changed, like you giving that kid a hug, like, you know what I mean? Like that might change his like perception of, oh, like these people don't all just hate me. Right. Like maybe they're like on, like they vote differently, they think differently, but like they can like touch me. So like maybe it's not like what I've thought, because I've been told that like they hate my very existence. You know what I mean? Like I think sometimes we get so caught up in like, we see like what the larger like message is.
Us versus them.
Yeah. Dude, it's horrible. That's like why I've stopped listening to this stuff. It's like, because
it just causes us to other each other, right? Like that's the term I keep hearing, is just othering.
Everything is just trivializing. It's just stereotyping. It's like, and it's really easy to listen to that and then to be like morally superior, not engage with anybody because you're morally superior.
Yeah, it's like what I was saying earlier.
Like I've heard
looking
this.
Down at them.
I've heard this. I know what you are. But it's like, that doesn't change anybody. And like that was like the gist of like that like the guy pouring the cup was like not correction, I shouldn't say that, but like basically like nitpicking like doesn't change anything. Like actually like loving a person. I think that goes like the movie The Jesus Revolution was like, he took those people in and then he said to like his congregation, like, if you have a problem with it, maybe you're the problem.
Yeah, door goes both ways.
Yeah. That scene, and like that's like, so Dev's been going to like the generosity class on Wednesdays, and I went to like one of them. I was able to make the third one, but it was just basically like hospitality being like a form of generosity, and it was like, bring in Christians you don't know, bring in your neighbors, and then bring in the poor. And Bob was kind of going through like, oh, like we're gonna read this and we're gonna be like, who does that? Nobody. Should we? Yeah. Who's gonna do it? Nobody. And he was like, why don't you just start with like somebody you know? And it's like, I feel like that's like real. You know what I mean? Like kind of like what you were saying, like you listen to like Matt Walsh and he's saying like people being like, no, you shouldn't call out Dylan Mulvaney. It's like, dude, like that's not where you should get involved. Like him going on Drew Barrymore's show and her like bowing to her. It's like, it's wild. And you can't affect any of it. Yeah. You could just get outraged by it.
Did you see the clip of him years ago from The Price is Right?
No.
So this clip went out, and it shows him. I guess the argument was supposed to be that this was before his transition, and they're like, this is literally the same guy.
Yeah.
So he's just a flamboyant gay man, but now he's wearing a dress.
Yeah. And
I guess the left, I would imagine the argument would have been, yeah, that's because he wasn't out. But that was just him being himself. But the funny thing is, I watched this video, and yes, if it was my son, I'd be a little embarrassed. Like the man was like attention seeking, but he wins like the grand prize.
Oh, he did.
Yeah. Oh, the dude did great, right? or Dylan, whatever. He goes on this dance. He goes on this dance like routine where he's like busting out the greatest moves I've ever seen a man do. He even busts out the Pee Wee Herman, like where you're like doing this, and I'm like, and they're going to cut to commercial, but they're just not cutting because he just so keeps going. And I was like,
spay and neuter your pets.
I watched this clip and I'm like, I think I just fell in love with Dylan Mulvaney.
Yeah.
I think I just saw him as a person that, super attention seeking, but I love this. And then I go into the comments to like expect crap. And it's everybody all these conservatives like, this is great. Why do I love this so much? Watch this like a million times. Yeah. I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm not alone. But it just shows like that we're all people, right? Like we all got our crap. And some people, you could see their crap on their sleeve and others hide it. But we all got it.
Chappelle's, I think it might have been his second last special. But you know where he talks about like the trans woman.
Chappelle. Oh yeah, dude, that was heartbreaking. I can't believe people hated that.
He made this one comment where it's just like, I forget what he was trying to say, but he's like, it may have been his third one. I think it was The Closer. Is that what he called his third one?
The Closer, yeah. But this is the one where he's talking about his friend who committed suicide,
Yeah, but
right?
he went back to her in the third one, and he like makes this comment about like, these are people having a human experience. And I was like, dude, I guess I'll say like the one thing, this is kind of like a non sequitur, but I always tell Dev, I'll be like, I talk to this guy like at work and I know he's a Christian. And she'll be like, I'll be like, he's just different. Like everybody else is self-seeking. Everybody else is like, I can't believe this was said. Do you know what this is doing to me? And then there's the other people who are like, I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to work on this. We're going to figure it out. And like, they just exude like they're not so concerned about making sure who they are within the company is understood to each person that's represented. They're willing to let things that like slight them and undercut them go like within reason, right? Like they're not necessarily pushovers, but like they're not so focused on like themselves. Those people stick out, and I'm telling you, like I can guarantee you they're likely a Christian, because that's the only type of person I've ever met in my life who can do that. Because if you don't have that in your life, like you become your God. Right? Like
that makes sense. Yeah.
And I just think that like I think Matt Walsh is like noise. Like, and I should say that like I think he's noise, but like there's like a two-part conversation. Like the legal side of it, I love what he's doing, going and like fighting, being like, you should expose that there are people performing life-altering surgeries on minors, and like you're applauding it, but actually like you're not really like being open about what's happening. Like he did that in Tennessee, right? Like that's cool. But Dylan Mulvaney just kind of seems like a contentious issue where like he's not even like, he becomes like a caricature.
Yeah, he's like literally like the princess or the prince of the left right now. He's just the next thing.
And he's the Bane to the right, right? So like nobody's gonna win talking about him. Nobody's gonna win outside of their group talking about him. Yeah, and
it's just gonna cause people to dig their heels in deeper when you argue on that level.
And that's like the weird balance where I don't. So that's like kind of going back to the Christian nationalism thing. It's like I think there's like two lives. There's like the life you lead where like you gotta like stop worrying about like what some podcast says like is the reality of the world, and you gotta like go out and like love people and like treat them the way that like you would hope they'd be treated. You know what I mean? Because most people aren't doing that to each other like in the world. But then there is the other part where like there's policy being made.
Yeah.
And that's like, what part do you actually play in that? You know what I mean? Like maybe like if you want to go be a politician or you want to be like a lobbyist, like then like that is a bigger part of your life. But if you're not, like we don't all have to be like, you know what I mean? Like we don't all have to be that person, which is a weird thing.
Yeah, that's why I think like there's a balance to that stuff, and like why I will every couple months take a break.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of Tim Pool. You ever listen to him?
I've listened to him when he's going on Rogan. I've never listened to Timcast.
So I learned about him from Rogan, which a lot of people have. He is my favorite. Yeah. Of anybody that ever cycled through, he's the one that I will stay consistent. Even when I go on my breaks, I'll tap into him. He is, I don't even know how to say it. It's like...
He's just like a free thinker.
Money didn't change the man. Yeah. Like I know the man is wealthy or rich, and he'll probably dismiss it, but like he's got a lot of money. And he seems like the same kid that was trying to do kickflips at the skate park, talking, meeting new people and friends, and he's just like excited about life. Yeah. We'll often say like, sometimes I don't know why I do this anymore. Like I should just go in the van down by the river and live the life I want. He's like, but this is my purpose. Like this is what drives me. He's like a workaholic. Like he's genuine to like a fault. Like I really love listening to him. But along the lines of what you're saying of like, is this just noise? Like he almost, not that he said I'm just noise, because it's like his life's work. Yeah. But he says that like this isn't the end all be all. So he's always trying to push with his reach as it grows. What can he do in society? Because he knows that his podcast isn't going to change the world. Yeah. His, the music that he's doing isn't going to change the world. But he's saying that like he'll release this music that like tops charts, and it's like it's good music. The last few songs he came out with were great, and he's like, I know I'm not going to change the world myself, but he's like, I just want to influence culture. And he realizes that as one man, he can only influence it so much. So it's like, it's more than just talking about the news. It's like, what are you doing to influence culture? You know, it's not just, it's influencing it in places that it's already being influenced in the opposite way.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's that's on the left is going to go and seek out his podcast to listen to it and actually to try and find value in it. You know, it might be Media Matters listening to trash him, right? But if somebody hears a song and they don't know it's from him, or they don't realize, and it's just like, there's some good morals in it, right? Like when I listen to some country music versus like, you know, WAP, it's like, there's a big difference. Not in everything. There's two drastic examples, but he's doing something now that he wanted to give out 10 grand to he was like podcasts, blogs, companies, anything that you want to do that is like, he's like, you don't need to be conservative. He's like, just something pushing against this far left extremism. Like, you can be moderate. He's like, something you want to do towards society to better it. I want to fund you. I want to give $10,000. And he found that he can't do that. So he's got it like,
why?
well, because he was thinking like, how would I do it? Well, if you're a member of the Timcast, if you're a member of Timcast, then you could do it. But then I guess that falls under the guidelines of a lottery. So they've been working through it, and then all these people are saying, well, I'll match your 10,000. I'll do this. And now it's turning into like basically a conservative to moderate Shark Tank that the guidelines in which he wants to do. I'm actually thinking like I've made moves this week to, we're turning this into an actual company. And I'm going to try, and whenever he's ready, like I want to throw my name in the hat.
Send it out.
But he wants to support not guys who like have a following where he's like, hey, I'll back you and I want to ride this bandwagon with you and help you out. He's like, I want to take these small people that are like the financial aspect of it is the wall that's stopping them from going further. And he's like, I want to pump money into them. And anyway, it was exciting for me, obviously, because I'm doing something and with that mindset. Like the whole idea is to add something into culture that is different than what I'm hearing every day, you know, as the norm. But the reason I brought that up, not to share about my excitement for it, but it's mostly just like what you were saying with Matt Walsh. He's actually doing more. Like the Daily Wire putting out What is a Woman and these movies. That to me is the power behind the Daily Wire. Like, have you seen any of the movies they made?
No, not really. I know like the Gina Carano movies and like the school shooter ones, but I've never watched them.
The Gina Carano, I don't know if it's out. But there was one about like a woman who was like trapped in a closet while her, you know, there was like a drug addict and her son. And anyway, it was like a stressful movie. And then the school shooting. When I first saw the school shooting one, I'm thinking, all right, this is going to be like a Christian movie where it's like low quality, bad script, good morals. Like you trashed everything for the morals. I watched a good movie that didn't push anything. But like I go back and watch and I'm like, all right, well, you know, they had a girl that was like, you know, fought off these guys. So it's like, you know, normally that would upset me, but what was different? That was a bad way to put it. It was like, well, what was different about this movie? Oh, well, in the beginning, her father was teaching her how to shoot. And it was normal. It wasn't like a very propagandist type of thing of like, this is what guns do and they hurt people. It was just like, it was a normal thing that it wasn't the main focus. It was something that was happening in the background of the scene while they were conversating, you know, or having a conversation about something else. And it was just like those little bits of influence of like normalizing things that we believe should be normal. And to me, that is like the biggest impact you can have. So like people like, you know, Matt Walsh and all those guys, their podcast might be that, but behind the scenes, some of those things are really cool. Like the him and her, like the chocolate is like, it's like pushing back just so, it's fun. It's exciting. It's letting you know that like we can have fun too. Like, I don't think they're going to change culture, but it's funny. Right. And we can laugh about things, but it also brings more things to the light, like some of the craziness. And then Tim Pool wanting to fund people and bring them to the next level is cool. It's like giving back. And like even Crowder has talked about, you know, not wanting to do this for much longer. He wants to take a back seat and help promote and bring people up to help further influence society. So when I hear all these guys at the top, all of a sudden within the past year, all having the same mindset, it's let me think that like maybe there is this movement that's coming that we just have to hold on for.
I do think that's cool. I know that's when I've kind of like said like my thoughts to Adam, that's been like the same thing he's mentioned, which I do agree with. Like the legislation's cool that putting out alternative like media is cool. So I do think that that's like not necessarily like there's like the bad part to get the good part, but I do think that there is like a benefit to that, like the culture, like if all you do is, and I think that's been their message, like specifically from the Daily Wire, like if all you do is hate on like, oh, the culture's bad, can you believe Disney's putting out this, but like you don't offer anything that's an alternative, like what are you actually doing? So I do agree, like, and I do think that's why I support them, like. Most of the times, like I don't listen to any of their shows, right? But I have their subscription, and like honestly, like I was planning on canceling, and like I was talking with Adam about it, and like he made that point, and I'll be like, I guess I'll keep this subscription, like for that film point. Like I have not listened to a podcast from any of them in over a year, and I will not listen to any more. But I'll read their news articles to get like the alternative viewpoint, and like I do think that it's worth like supporting the ability of another organization to put out something counter to like, you know, Disney or whatever.
It's funny. I've been part of the Mug Club for like 5 years now, and I
haven't been a part of that.
I don't use the app. No. Nothing. I listened to his free episode when he was putting it out. Crowder.
Yeah.
He put a free episode out like every day. And he'd always be like, hey, audio listeners. He's like, you know, there is a paid version. And I'm like, I wanted to tell him, yo, man, stop it. I paid. This is convenient. I don't want to watch a show. I want to listen to it in my truck.
Yeah.
It's funny. But I thought a few times about canceling it. I'm like, why would I take, like, it's so minuscule in my life. Like, but on a grand scale of everybody that's putting in there, like I want to fund this.
Yeah.
So like I've been thinking about joining Timcast as well.
Yeah.
Just for that reason. I'm like, why am I not? Like I listen to him every day, even though I'm listening to the free and I'm not going to listen to any of the paid. Why not? You know, put in that. And
how wild was when he did the podcast with Joe Rogan?
No, it was amazing.
Jack Dorsey.
Yes.
And like
that
that's
other girl, his right hand woman.
I don't know what her name was, but she was like the legal counsel. But like everything he said, he was like, I just think this is what you're doing. And they're like, that's not what we're doing. And then now the Twitter files, it's like, that's exactly what we were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a funny thing. I was talking to Deb about it. Like Matt Taibbi and Schellenberg went to, they testified in front of Congress. Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, like, they're like I think there's like these Stanford articles that came out to where they were like, hey, this is like bad data. How do we express this to the public who can't handle the truth? And that's my paraphrasing, but it was like to that extent. And I was saying to Devil, it's so funny that like this information's coming out, and like I'm interested in it, and I'm like probably like to the like 95th percentile of like interest, and I'm like, I just don't even care. Like I just don't want it to happen again. You know what I mean? Like
I just want them to admit it.
Yeah.
And let's move on.
Yeah, like I'm like it's wild. Like
which is also a difference between the right and the left.
Yeah.
I think the right is willing to say, let's end all of this nonsense and let's move on from here. Where the left is like, they're still looking for reparations from things that these people haven't even dealt with. How about the lady that was like a Black Panther that recently did you see this?
No.
Forget who she was, but she was like a big advocate for like not reparations, but like about slavery and how it affects these people. So she's on this show and they do a 23andMe kind of thing, like a DNA, and they
this is on where she was
one of the 100
right?
people that came over here on the Mayflower. That's her ancestors, and she just on this live thing has to react to like not being a family of slaves. Like, oh, you're the people that founded this country? You're literally the people that you hated against, and now you have to rethink that? Anyway, it's like, I don't want her to... I hope that she sees that and sees it through a different light rather than be embarrassed. Like, anyway, I forget where I was going with that. But, yeah, the left and the right, being able to see these things and move on. It's like, I don't know why that's different. I don't know why one side wants to just beat everything down and burn it all when we're ready to like move on. And it's not from a place of privilege. It's because, Republicans aren't rich and Democrats aren't poor. It's like there's a mix, right?
Yeah.
To a degree.
I think a lot of that has to do with faith. A lot of it has to do with like what you think the ultimate like meaning of reality is. It's crazy.
Yeah, like even with the Matt Taibbi stuff, like you know what they're there for, like, and they know what was coming, and they're still like, there was that one woman who was like these so-called journalists, and he's like, well, I know you mentioned them so-called journalists, and he starts naming off
best time seller.
10. I wrote 10 books, all of which were like 10 New York bestseller. Like I won this award, that award.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on. Like,
you know what was wild about that? When he was
shot
saying that, she just looked away and was talking to an aide. And it was like, I know she's...
Dude,
I
that
feel
is
like
a
she's
move.
She's doing it on purpose, like, to just discredit. Like,
I saw that today.
I didn't even know that she said that.
Yep.
I was busy talking to my aide about the next conversation.
So Lori Lightfoot, there was a journalist who kept asking her questions and recording it because he was part of the press group that was allowed in for these press conferences. And it started gaining traction to where people were following him, and all of his videos would go viral of him asking her questions and her having no response.
She would just ignore him.
Just no, I mean, like, there's no way to answer. Like, you can't defend the questions he's asking. He's asking very blunt questions about the crime rate, and she's lying openly.
Yeah.
And he didn't, like, it wasn't like commentary and breakdowns. He would just release the footage of him asking her a question, her reaction.
Okay.
They were going viral. Well, today I saw a video. This was very recently because now she's gone, right? She's voted out. And he's sitting there talking to her, and he's like, you know, I didn't realize this happened. She revoked his, I forget what the term is called, but she revoked his ability to be part of the press there. So she did that because of the traction that he was getting. He said it was because, you know, it was hurting her campaign, which she just lost.
Yeah.
And he's like, you used your power against the press to shut the press up. And he's like, so now I'm sitting here, and he's like, I want to tell you to pack your bags and get the hell out of my city. Anyway, he's going on this rant about how horrible what she did was and how unconstitutional and how to bring the... And she did that move where she turns over to like the person to her side and like in the middle of this like really heartfelt thing, and he's not even being rude at this point. He's just like laying out something really serious. And she just dismisses him and like starts a conversation. And even the people in front of her, like that are part of the, like are turning around, like they can hear her talking behind them, and they all turn around and like,
I think it's an optics thing. I think they know
it's a dismissal.
But I think, if I can say this the right way, I think they know what it looks like when they make it a video clip. Like of her
them just
looking
standing
at
there
him,
like blank face.
Like it looks like she's taking in. It looks like they're taking in like that criticism. You know what I mean?
That's sick, dude. That's sick. It's a game.
It's a weird thing. Like going back to that. It's a comment I make it all the time to Dev. So I'm like, well, you know, there's no love without truth. But I've noticed that, like, I remember I was watching another, like, contentious debate, and I noticed that the two guys just would not accept a point. They'd be like, well, answer this to me. And they would ask him, and the guy would just be like, well, how about blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's weird where... And I think it's to a fault, and it kind of shows up like in our political system where like because you have to win, you can't actually have an honest conversation. So like when they're looking away from these people making honest points that are like damaging to them, it's because they know it'll take a little bit of credibility away from that person. You know what I mean? Like they're dismissing them. Whereas like, the example that was making me think of is like whenever the guy would say like, hey, like, what about this? The guy would like not even acknowledge it and just go to a different thing. It's like, if you can't give any ground between your two viewpoints, like you're like, what are you even doing? You're trying to have a 100% victory, right? Which like,
that's like the disgusting game part of politics that I think everybody on any side is sick of.
And now it's just like, that's just how you, because everything is political, it's like how it is now. I just think it makes it to where like you can't actually on those platforms where it feels like you're keeping score, like you can't have a real conversation because like, you know, they can't cede any ground to the other person.
Well, with AI, we won't even know if the conversation is real or not.
We'll just be dead because we're purposeless.
Dude, but seriously, that's the thing. Somebody brought up that I keep bringing back this AI. Like, I can't even begin to imagine what this next election is going to look like. Can you imagine? Think about all the lies that were put out and the fake videos of like, this person stands against this and that, and they voted against this. And it's like, yeah, that was a legislation about something completely different, and that was, a little dog ear, or what's that called?
A dog whistle.
No, not dog whistle. Like when it's like when you fold a page. Anyway,
Yeah, dog ear.
Yeah, dog ear. Okay, it's like something hidden inside of a legislation. The person votes against it because it's horrible.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, on page 5,422, section whatever, the bottom paragraph, it stood for like women's ability to buy tampons legally. It's like he voted against that, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's like
it's 10,000 page bill.
Stupid. It's so stupid. It's like, well, the rest of the 10,000 pages or 9,909 were about like genocide. Like it's just like, and I know these are stupid examples, but it's so dumb.
I've gotten played by those. There's two things that I know I got played by. One was, I think it might have been the 2016 election. There was something where it was like, do you think the limit for a judge in Delaware County, like an age limit, should be, and it gave like just like an age date. And I was like, yeah, like they should definitely be out by then. And then I was talking to Dev's parents and they were like, that extended the age 5 years, extend like the age. And you're like, okay. Like, wow. I like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's just really messed up.
And that was legit. Like I'm pretty sure they won like that question. Like
it's manipulative.
Yeah. Manipulative. But what was the other thing? The other thing was Doug Mastriano. There was something that they kept saying that he said, and I was like, man, that's rough that he said that. Like that's like I wouldn't like. I don't like. I might agree with them, but I like that wouldn't be my political like point. Like I think that's too harsh. And then like after the election, like Dev's mom was like, he never said that. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, yeah, they just like cut up like the audio like to make him say that. And I was like,
well, that's like the famous Trump quote about there's good people on both sides.
Oh, dude,
they specifically cut the beginning and end of that to make it look like he was saying that there was good Nazis.
A white supremacist, yeah. Well, dude,
that's the most famous one I've ever heard.
Another one for him that I fell for was They ran it over so many things. Where he was like, if I run for president, I'll run for a Republican, basically because they're stupid. And I was like, oh, he's always said that, And then somebody was like, that's not real. And I was like, well, no, I thought it was real. That's what I'm saying. That he said that.
Dude, I first started catching on those things when a friend of mine was like, when I was first into, I just talked about him earlier. What the heck is his name? Got the beard now. You said no.
Got the beard now.
That I saw at the rally. Why am I drawing a blank? No, the politician that ran for president.
Oh, Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm getting old. Not really. It's just a good excuse. This is Sazerac.
It's iced tea.
Anyway, I was talking to a buddy about him, and he's like, he voted against dildos, right? And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, he voted against he wanted to make dildos illegal. First of all, I was like, wait, that's really? A weird thing. It was one of I had to go look at it, and that's when I realized
he voted
this is
on
all
something
BS.
Else, but it was in the page.
It was in like this, it was like part of this big bill that I stood for him voting against. But it's like, then they use that to say he voted against women's rights to purchase sex toys.
Let's put together a bill that gives you the right to ground up your neighbor's dog and call it ground beef, and then inside of it make dildos legal.
Yeah. Or we can, call it an infrastructure bill and make it all about COVID-19.
Yeah. What is infrastructure is the new question.
What the frig, man? Dude, I just saw there's a big investigation now going out to like the schools that took in these like billions of dollars like over the, throughout the whole country. And they're like, what are they using this money for? Because they were closed.
Yeah.
And it's like, anyway, they were talking about all this amount of money that was misappropriated, all these businesses that took on money that they didn't need. And it's like, it's just, I'm still pissed. I've never been more angry about receiving money than when the pandemic hit, and me and Jenny was making more money than she'll probably ever make in the rest of her life.
Oh, really?
Being a travel COVID nurse.
Were they paying a premium?
A premium is an understatement. I'll tell you this. In the very beginning, they were paying, it was like $12,000 or $13,000 a week in New York. And that's when we first started thinking, well, you work 1 week, we'll buy you an RV. You can stay outside. I'll wash your clothes. We'll get hazmat suits. Like, this is like when it first hit. Then like there was another one that was, it was $100,000 or a little over. It was like just over 6 figures for like a 10 week work in Texas. that got
Wow.
that she got sent, and like a bunch of people were getting sent anyway, or maybe it was just something we saw. But yeah, the incentives for travel nurses were disgusting. It's because the more people that got brought in for COVID,
The more money
they.
they made.
I mean, that was a sick and twisted way to work it, and I don't know if that was malicious, but it sure as hell ended poorly for a lot of people. But hey, that's a whole nother conversation. But that being said, what was my point? Wait, I was going into that. Oh, the misappropriated money. Yeah, it was crazy. I forget the point I was trying to make, but yeah, the misappropriation of money during that time was insane. Oh, receiving money. Jenny's making all this money, right?
And getting paid.
And I'm looking at my money. I'm like, wow, someone's got to fuel up the vehicles. Like that's like my whole paycheck at the time. And I was like, well, okay, yeah, we got to pay fuel. Yeah, someone's got to buy chicken nuggets on Saturdays. Something like it was just like I was trying to make myself feel valuable.
Starbucks bills
There you go.
for our traveling.
Whatever minimalistic, like I just had to have value in my working 8 hours a day. And then I'm watching these checks just start like getting deposited in my account. I'm like, this is disgusting. And then it was like for childcare. I'm like, we don't need childcare. My mom watches the kids, and we're making money. And it's like this repercussion that we're now facing with inflation and all the other problems that are coming. Just even the uncertainty with the banks, and people just have lost trust in everything financial right now, and like everything's going to crap. And I just think about all the people that took in that money that didn't need it, and there was not even an option to deny it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
would you have? I don't know.
That was a
nothing
weird thing
against
too.
you.
Like for me, like I basically I was fortunate enough that I was in an essential industry. We shut down 0 days. Like we worked straight through. I mean, you guys were in essential industry as well, right? Like, so, and we got the stimulus money too, and it was weird. It's like, what do you do with it? I mean, like, we used it to our advantage. Yeah, I mean, that was, and it was weird, right? It just got deposited into your bank account.
I think
like,
we donated one, and like I was like, I don't feel comfortable spending. I think I bought a gun with one.
we bought a gun.
I bought a bunch of ammo. I bought like a few thousand rounds of 223 or whatever it was.
223.
5.56, one of the two.
Military grade. Yeah, that I did like. I don't even know what to say about for the government. Like,
I just feel like there's no concept of like value anymore, and it's just about winning that day. Did we win today? Because that's all that matters.
So that's like the thing. So they
Trump
came out
too.
a lot of everybody. It's just the game. It's literally just the game, which is infuriating because you're like, can you have a real conversation with these people like to try and help us? And they don't. Like, I was watching Ron Johnson, which I probably agree with most of the things he was saying. He would ask Janet Yellen a question, and she would start talking, and he'd be like, I'll answer it for you. I'll answer it for you. Oh, you got to look in your papers to see what that is? I'll tell you what it is. And it's just like, this isn't real. Like, this isn't, like, if you talk to me that way, I'd be like, okay, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how you talk to real people.
How did this start? Because I always attribute it back to Ben Shapiro destroys fill in the blank. Because that was the first time where I was introduced to like this slam dunking on people as like the greatest thing.
Just like catch lines.
And now that's all it is.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody, but like AOC out there crying at a gate and like all of them. Like, and I'm not just trying to get on her because she's a Democrat. Like, they're just all doing. Remember Lindsey Graham 2.0? Do you remember that whole phase?
No.
Lindsey Graham came out with this crazy speech, and you're like, who is this Lindsey Graham? Is he the next candidate? A lot of eyes on Lindsey Graham this week, and they're showing the clip, and it's like, they called him Lindsey Graham 2.0. It was like, that was his new name. And then I'm like, no, this is
the third booster today. He's wild.
God. And then it was like, because he slam dunked once, and then now everybody hates him again. It's like, he's just got to get his next slam dunk.
Even for like 3 weeks, he's like, I'm cool, right? And he's like 2.0, and they're like, no, you suck again.
But it's a game.
Dude.
AOC is good at that game.
What about, what's a weird thing is the Ukrainian war.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's weird too because it's like, I'm going to try and throw out a word and like pretend that I can back it up. Like, it's heterodox, like, and that's not the right word. But like, so, like, if I understand this correctly, like, Tucker Carlson's like, what are we doing? And then, like, Jon Stewart's like, Ukrainian wars, like, look at all these like national heroes. And then there was a whole thing about the guy like the Nazi tattoo like on his like arm at Disney World as Jon Stewart was like giving him like a medal, not the Medal of Honor, but like a commemorative award for like their standout. And what was that like steel factory? I forget what it was called, but it's weird, right? Because people always talk about like the industrial like war complex, right? And it feels like they're trying to escalate it constantly.
Yeah, dude, as the war machine keeps turning, man.
Dude, and
it's what it feels like.
And like, it's so funny too because people talk like there's both sides of like, okay, like Putin like invaded like Ukraine, not cool. War atrocities, not cool. Like, super against those, super for Ukraine to like defend itself. But then also like, hey, do you notice how like NATO has been like working to like put armaments like on the Ukrainian border so that they're like even closer to Russia? You're like, and then they have like the clips of like Biden being like, we would never send planes to Ukraine, and then they're like, we're considering sending planes,
dude. Aside from the politics of it, it's weird. Do you remember the Gulf War at all?
Like the first one, or
like the Gulf War? When we were probably like
after like September 11th.
No,
like 91.
Like 91.
I was born 91.
Okay, so I remember being a kid. I was born in 88.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid and watching the TV, and I'll never forget it. I didn't understand what war was, but I remember watching war.
Yeah.
While sitting there with my toys. Like, I remember laying there with, like, my teddy bear and, like, whatever toys I had. And my dad and me are sitting there, and we're watching this TV, and all I could see is this night vision goggles kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was just green with, like, brighter green dots spraying, and it was, like, the tracer rounds. And I just remember thinking, this is amazing that we're seeing this. And, like, I didn't get it. I really did not get it. I was really young. But, like, that memory, for whatever reason, stuck with my mind. Maybe it's because of the reaction everybody around me had as an adult. But I remember for the following years, as I started to learn what that was, I was like, that was crazy that I watched a war on television from my living room. And then you fast forward to this, and it's like, I'm part of a Telegram group chat.
Oh, dude, do you see
I'm literally getting text messages from people in Ukraine.
You are?
Yeah, there's probably, when I turned on my phone a minute ago, like 30 of them popped in. It's just like video footage that they're like on. It's like if you were to send me a video of like, hey, look what I did today. But it's like crazy footage.
Really?
I can't watch it often. Sometimes I'll go on if one gets like enough hype. But man, what does that do to us? It's weird.
The desensitization.
Yeah,
just
that's
like seeing death.
Yeah, well, I'm not watching it for that. Like, there are those, and I
Yeah.
don't watch any of them. I can't anymore. I'm mostly watching, like, really solid wins from, like, dropping a grenade from a drone through, like, a sunroof of a vehicle that's traveling down the road. It's like, who does that?
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then, like, I mean, it's like they're literally going and buying these little drones, hooking up, like, this little button that would open up and release the grenade.
Yeah.
And they're flying them above, and, like, there's this group of like 4 Russian soldiers driving down the road with the sunroof open, and the drone is like so high, and it just like lines itself up, and you're watching the camera feed from the drone, and you just watch it open up, and this little grenade just drops, and it's like right through the sunroof, and then boom, and you're watching like one guy crawl away, and it's
Really?
like, it's brutal, but I'm watching it like sitting here halfway across the world.
Yeah.
I don't really know the point I'm trying to make, but something's not okay
I do
with
think,
this. There's something really weird about that.
I do feel like for me, I almost feel like this thing, like, you're too soft. You should watch this and become like okay with it. Like, so you should be ready for like,
I get that.
but then I don't
think it's healthy.
I think the real thing is like, no, this should be horrifying, and like,
It's not scary enough.
yeah. And it wouldn't be unless you were like actually in that situation, which like maybe that's the thing. Like maybe you should be like unexposed to it until like it's required of you, so that you can take and like, you know what I mean? Because like I think like I think inside of you, like that's the urge to be like, I'll just be a cold-blooded killer.
I think about that because Civil War is getting thrown around a lot nowadays.
Oh dear God.
And I like to think that I'm going to be this like badass dude that's mowing down the enemy, but then I realize like the enemy is the people I'm standing behind in line at the grocery store that I'm smiling to and trying to have it. You know what I mean? Like it's to me, it's hell on earth.
Yeah, that's
when I really think about it, but I often will dismiss that in the moment of like courageous, fantasizing. That's sick.
Sometimes I feel like with your brain, like where it's like, no, you should do this. Like the harder thing is to be like, no, I shouldn't, and like that's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Where you're like, just like you said, like you wanted to be the guy to like mow down everybody. You're like, no, I shouldn't. Like, I should remain this way. I should know that that's a potential that, like, I may have to, like, be in that situation to protect my livelihood and, like, my family. But until that time, I'm not that person.
I think to a degree, it's something we blame the left on, which is virtue signaling. I think that's the right's version of virtue signaling is like, I would mow down this. I would fight. I would shed the blood of these politicians and public hangings. And these are things I will vocally say sometimes. I don't push them here because immediately after I'm like, calm down a little bit. My poor mother has to hear so much of how I'm going to like literally slaughter politicians in the street. And then I'll be like, I'm sorry, Mom. I don't really feel that way. I'm just angry. But, my thing...
just angry.
Well, the thing
I
think
hot that time when I said that I was going to hang them by their feet upside down and cut their throats.
I just need a Snickers. What it really boils
Someone
down
took my dropper. Really mad at that person.
No, it is virtue signaling though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in our own way, like we're building up ourselves.
You're trying to buff yourself up.
Yeah. I don't go to the gym, but I'd do something if I could.
Dude,
let that Democrat come try and take my guns. I'll blow his friggin' head off.
I'll see red in a second. I don't know what I'll do, but I know it'll be red.
I remember saying here one time, I was like, if the FBI tried to come to my house to take my guns, I said, and this is true. I was like, I have a very powerful...
If the FBI tried to come.
I was like, I have a very powerful gun by my front door for the pure purpose of somebody trying to invade my home, and I blow them away. And I said that on here. And I remember going through you learn a lot about yourself when you have to read... No, I didn't. You learn a lot about yourself when you have to listen to yourself. And I remember hearing that, and I was like, yeah, I get that. I kind of agree, but... I don't think I would do that.
I was 100 to 0 when I said it. I'm 50-50 at best now.
That's the thing. If you're watching this, like, I don't even know where you're right up there. Don't take anything I say seriously, please. Like, I'm angry at times, and I just say things, and my poor mother knows to, like, dismiss it. But I hope you guys know as well. Like, dismiss it to a degree. I'm not going to blow away an FBI agent for knocking at my door. All right? I'm probably going to be like, but they're my guns. No. I bought it. I got the receipt.
No, I've never done anything violent.
I don't want to hurt anybody. Dude, have you ever seen anybody get shot?
No.
I've seen a few. I remember there's this one scene I've seen a few, but the one that really sticks with me, and I remember hearing gunshots in South Philly, and I dropped to the ground because we're sitting on a couch, and everybody lays on the ground, and I run over and I crawl over to the window, and I'm rolling down, and I watch a man coming down my street just like boom, 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 just like blowing like rounds down my street. And a dude who was already hit in the thigh is just spraying blood all over the ground and just dragging his leg trying to run while shooting behind him and just hitting, everybody's just shooting everywhere. It was friggin' terrifying, right? And I think back on that moment whenever I want to say things like nonsensical and say, do I really want to have been outside at that point? Because I didn't even want to be on that street. I would have been okay being on planet Mars at that point. Like, it was so scary. Yeah. But yet, in the movies, it's hyped up and it's cool and badass and like, 50 Cent was shot 5 times and now the guy who shot him, where's he? He's dead. It's like, that's cool. And like, I get that stuff, but watching it, very different. Very different. I mean, I saw a lot of violence that I go back on. I remember one time I came out of a house, it was like 2 a.m. and doing drugs in this person's house, like not the time for me to defend myself. Mm-hmm. And I got a little snub nose in my pocket, and I was like, there was some kind of feud outside. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I really got to get home. I got to leave this house. I don't want to be here right now. So I was like, and I got my gun. Like, I'm good, but there was something going on outside. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, maybe it's the drugs. Maybe it just sounds like worse. Mm-hmm. I go outside. There's a lot between the 2 houses. The one that I'm in, and I have to go across the lot to get to my vehicle. There's a giant crowd outside, and I keep hearing white boy get said, and I'm the only white guy around, and I'm just trying to go to my vehicle, and I got my hands in my pocket, my fingers like on my gun, and because I know something violent is going on. There's like this big fight, and out of nowhere, like this knife gets pulled out, and I watch this woman just get stabbed, like by like I'm talking like big old butcher knife, just stabbed, and just bleeding out, and her friends grab her by the arms and drag her to the vehicle, and it's like, this is not normal. But I remember, and the reason I bring this up is, and we're talking about being debased and things like that. That was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. I was freaking scared. I was backed up against the wall, and all I could think of is, do I pull my gun out? There was no reason to. But I've never seen that. I didn't know how to read that kind of situation. I didn't know how to react. It's kind of like a cop who gets in his first situation where he pulls the gun too soon and hurts somebody. And now the whole country thinks he's, this racist murderer. I often think back on this moment of like, and granted they have training, is a little different, but that was terrifying, and no human being should ever be in that position. And I didn't know how to react. And I don't think the person in the fight knew how to react, which is why they overreacted to a fist fight by stabbing somebody with a butcher knife, which why was that even there? Anyway, I just see human beings as like, we just overreact until there's no going back. That person was stabbed. You can't heal that wound. You can't, maybe you can, but I'm saying like you can't take that back. You did that. It's done. And so often now we are seeing things and reacting to them. And the reaction wants to be, I'm going to blow the FBI agent back to across the street and blow his head off, whatever. But the reality is, I'd be taken away from my family.
Yeah.
My kids would be interrogated. My family would be interrogated. My house would be raided. It's like, we don't need to jump to that.
Yeah.
But in our minds, we're fantasizing about these things. So then what do we do if we actually go to the front door and we're faced with these realities?
Yeah.
The only thing we have to look at is the fantasies. So how do we actually react? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I do think I get what you're saying, but I think like for you, like I would bet that you would be like okay, you say like the whole thing like, oh, I'm gonna like blow that person away, but I bet like in reality you would be like, what do I have to do to stay like in this house?
I see myself as arguing verbally.
Yeah, I would bet
Call
my money
lawyer.
on like you would.
I don't have a lawyer, but I'd be calling him.
You would be going like, what's step 1, 2, 3, 4? How many steps can I take before like this becomes something like, that like I'm like losing like my presence in my house? I think, dude, it's so sad. Like when you talk about like seeing all of that, like I feel like a thing that's been lost like within like society is just like the value of human life. And I feel like there's so many like ways that like we nick at it. But dude, like I don't know what it is like within the city with that. But like my one friend from high school is like a cop in the city of Philly. It's like there was one specific kid who had a scholarship to go play at Florida State, like a Division I football program that sends people to the NFL every year. And the kid's walking around with a colostomy bag. Right?
You getting shot?
Yeah. And it's like,
sorry.
What? Like why? Like why? And like I'm not there. Like I don't know why, but like clearly there's like a lack of value like in like human life, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think like that point you made about like the person who like pulled a knife like in a fist fight. There's something weird like where you have to win.
Yes.
There's some weird thing where you have to win the fight. And I think that like acts on to like the lack of value of human life where like that's why people pull guns or like, like I'm going to win this situation.
Nobody wants
like,
to take
no
it
matter
out.
what no matter like what it takes, I'm going to win. So if I have a knife, I'm going to pull that. If I have a gun, I'm going to shoot this person. You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird thing where you don't think, okay, like what would be most important in this situation is for neither of us to get hurt. Mm-hmm. Like if I have to look like an idiot and like lose this like verbal confrontation, that would be better than me shooting this person and like spending however long like in jail or whatever. But yeah, it's wild how it just seems that general society doesn't value human life outside of like their very, and it's not even their own life. It's more like their own ego, like their pride, like just winning that situation to feel like who they are in their head is maintained. It's crazy.
It's sad, dude. We're a debased society. We really are.
Yeah.
This is why, and like, we can come up with a million solutions of what it's going to take to save this nation, but I really think it's Jesus.
Dude,
I mean, I can't even say I know that's it. So unless that happens, unless we have our own Jesus revolution, I don't see where it goes.
Mike sent me this. I always ask Mike for books to read. I'm like, this guy, he's got time.
Oh, yeah.
He knows what's good. What's a good book to read is. So the last one he told me to read was "Slouching Our Way to Utopia," and
that's a great title.
It's this.
I love that.
He calls it like a long century. It's from 1870 to 2010, and he's saying that like. He has this real rough, he doesn't explain it to you, but it's like how like economic progression increased from that time exponentially from all of history before. And it's like one of the things is there used to be just like this fact that, and people wrote about it and were like, this is what life is. Like it's never going to change, where it was called like the Malthusian something. It was this guy, Robert Malthus, where it was saying, for each technological innovation, there's a proportionate increase in population that negates the benefit of that like technological innovation. So like basically population shouldn't increase. Like that's a limiting factor. But, and then 1870 to 2010 basically showed that it wasn't true. Like economic prosperity increased to where the population could like expand. But he has this one thing from Solzhenitsyn, like who wrote like the Gulag Archipelago, and he talks about. I think he was referencing like a Shakespeare play, and he's like saying like those characters aren't bad, like they kill specific people, but like why don't they expand upon that? And he was like, it's ideology. Like ideology will make you do things that are like unspeakable, and you'll be able to do it without any like concern to your consciousness because you believe in that like ideology. And it's like humans believe something. And like I think like all of like the things I've read recently, like just like how I like feel about life, it's like if you don't have a God, you are your God. And like that's where you can like kill a person if it's in like contradiction to like your well-being or like your perception of who you are, right? And it's just like, yeah, like people need to believe something. Like, what are they going to believe? Like, what alternative do they have to believe that, like, there's something more important than themselves? You know? Like, what has there been produced in history to tell you? And that kind of...
It's interesting. You saying that is just furthering the opposition to my current mindset of we do need to be more outspoken and voting for things that are Christian values, things that like will affect society, because if not, these other ideologies will be the norm. You know, I like to blame TikTok and Instagram and their algorithms, but it's like, well, what allows these algorithms to grow? Well, it's society. And what's society based on? A lot of it is based on the norms. And the norms come from the laws, right? The laws, it's either the norms reflect the laws or the laws reflect the norms. I'm not sure which one comes first, but it makes me think that I should be thinking differently. Like, I really need to rethink this. It's not something I'm going to solve here today, but I really need to rethink like where I stand on voting based on my Christian beliefs versus, you know, not wanting to implement my beliefs onto somebody else. I think that that's a line that I need to explore.
Yeah.
Because what you're describing is very serious. It's very real. And we're, both sides, you know, are affected by it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Dude, human beings are so flawed. I swear, it's so easy to see that we were designed to have somebody to seek after because we suck. Like, we suck, right? Like, we think we're so great, and, like, the greatest thing we can do ends usually in millions of people dying, right? Like, you look and it's like there's been so many restarts in history.
It's not perfect. Like any way you like slice anything, it's like, well, somebody was like suffering from like that approach terribly. Yeah.
Well, listen, dude, I thank you so much for coming out here.
Thank you for having me.
I really
man.
appreciate it. This time flew by. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we end tonight?
No, man. I'm
No,
good.
you said it all.
Said it all.
Dude, thank you so much. For those of you watching, thank you so much, or listening. If you're listening, you're a nerd. Go and watch it. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe. I know I keep saying it. We need to get to 1,000 subscribers before we can be monetized, which is not about putting money in my pocket. It's about maybe getting better cameras, replacing the table, things like that. It's really about the experience for you guys. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing and listening to, that's the best way you can help. Also, I am curious about your thoughts. I've been thinking about doing an every 2 weeks. So we're doing one episode a month. I've been thinking about in between doing something that's just me for about an hour or so, maybe doing some news commentary, things like that, without a guest I was thinking about releasing it on a Patreon for like a very minimalistic amount, just something to have something backstage to put a little bit, even if it's $2 a month or $1 a month, I don't care. So please, if you're listening and you're one of the people that communicate with me regularly, thank you very much. If not, please become one of those people. It's a huge benefit to me. Let me know what you think about that, or if you have any ideas or thoughts, because as much as I'm doing this for me, I'm also doing it for you. So anyway, thank you so much for listening this far. Doug, thank you so much for coming out. And yeah, until next time.
Until next
See you guys. Deep Fried Thoughts, it's the best podcast. Deep Fried Thoughts. Don't worry, we're working on a better intro.